To order, and please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening.
Oh,
You don't mind if I look at you?
should we get you a chair?
Oh,
No, we don't.
I'm sorry. Does anyone need minutes?
Nope.
I don't think I brought them. I did.
It's all right, if you just leave them there,
Okay.
I can see.
Oh, you, minutes or the agenda?
Both.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
I had,
this has been quite a week for me. I have
no,
had,
I had them in an envelope, and I'm mad now.
had a lot of things going on.
Have everything.
It's pretty bad when I come on only this. That's it.
You have the date right.
Do you need a piece of paper?
You want a paper?
No, no,
Okay,
I got a good memory.
all right, well,
That's the only thing that's working on my body so far.
well, I watched the meeting just in case I missed something. First order of business is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. Oh, actually.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
I'll second.
A motion made and seconded
I-
to accept the minutes.
Got one.
Any discussion?
Yes, under advisory workshop,
Yes.
advisory workshop, we did talk about the workshop, but May 2nd was talked about as the possible date for the pre-town meeting, so that needs to be reflected. It's not, the workshop is not May 2nd.
No, we did, you were correct.
Right, there's
We
two-
did set
they're two
possible
separate
workshop,
items.
But May 2nd was discussed as a possible date for the pre-town meeting.
Right, we talked about the workshop later this month, at the end of the month, and then May 2nd as the possible pre-town. So if we can get that clarified,
Okay.
that would be the only change I can see, Mr. Chairman.
Just down on the bottom where it says I'll have something, yeah, with a week, but within.
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't gonna hold it up for a little
Okay.
bit of time.
Okay. I can revise that and have that sent back tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything further? Any other
Yes.
changes, corrections? I didn't see any other.
That would be the
other than-
corrections I
other
would
than that one.
make, Mr. Chairman. Do you need to take and end up having a substitute motion? Or just have those corrections?
With
made?
that correction.
Accept as corrected, with corrections?
With that one change. All right, on the motion with that one correction, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes. Done, done, done. Mad at myself. The next fun thing on the agenda is the advisory bylaw. At the last meeting, I had sent a rough draft, and then at the end of that meeting, or while we were discussing it, Tony said he had something, and he did send it out.
Everybody got that, what I sent?
Yep. Yes.
Electronically.
Okay, so so what I sent out was based on our discussions and meeting with Carter.
And I read that over and looked at it, and I revised some portions of that. I added a section 8 to specify that we can do subcommittees, or as a Senate representative to go like to school committee meetings or to the selectmen's meetings, et cetera, if we so choose. The one thing that I put in was back in, or to include, is that this committee should maintain the ability or right to fill a vacancy which may happen during, in between town meeting and town meetings. And I feel strongly about that issue. It's been in the bylaw, I believe since its inception. There are other towns that do it. I don't understand why all of a sudden there is a need to change it. Is it to change it just to change it? We're not the only community that does it.
So my thought on that is you're really in a semantics issue, because whether we go out and fill the spot, you're taking an extra day or two for someone to fill out the proper form and go through the moderator and appoint them. If we fill the spot, the person still has to do the training, open meeting law training and everything. To me, by having the moderator do that, that formalizes the process. It doesn't mean that from day one when we have an opening, it doesn't mean we can't go and find somebody if the moderator doesn't have a person.
If it's his responsibility,
Okay.
then it doesn't fall on us anymore.
No, it's not his responsibility. It's his responsibility to appoint somebody. It's not his responsibility to beat the bushes to find somebody.
Yes, it is.
Where does it say that?
Every town moderator
where
that
does it
has
say
that
it?
responsibility goes out and finds somebody to appoint. That's the whole concept of having a moderator appoint people. If you look back at what communities do, the moderator is supposed to be independent of town government.
Okay.
And the voters.
Peace.
And he ends up
Okay.
choosing somebody.
You're still talking semantics, because if he goes out and within 30 days can't find somebody, and we do, by taking that out, all I'm putting in there is we can go and just have somebody submit it. Why does it have to say we have to pick our own? Or we have the capability? We have the capability of, even within that 30 days, of trying to find someone and bring them up to the moderator.
I guess I have to take it end up saying that I support the chairman and his position as far as the ability for this committee to take and appoint somebody and not have the moderator take and step in. He has been reluctant to do that in the past. He may be getting more in line with it now, but it's still, over the 7 years that I have been on here, we have gone to that moderator time and time again.
Multiple moderators in the last
Yes,
7
and
years.
multiple moderators, and especially this last one, he's been on for almost 4 years now. We've gone to him 4 times, and he says, I don't have anybody. And it takes us 6 months as a group to find somebody.
Okay.
How long do you think it's gonna take him? I mean, personally, I look forward to years from now. Maybe your feelings are that you're gonna go look for somebody if that happens. But I'm looking at saying, the big picture, this whole board changes. You think people on this board are gonna take and end up saying, let's go find somebody when the moderator is responsible? I don't think so.
Okay, so you give him his 30 days, and then if we choose to go find somebody, what's the difference of if we find?
That's we this year.
No,
What
wait.
about
No,
5 years
hold
from
on.
now when
No,
you're
let me
not on?
finish. 5 years from now, we find somebody, all I'm saying is, we tell that person, there's a form you have to fill out, a form, interest form, it goes to the moderator, he officially appoints the person, it takes out any type of conflict of interest, because we're not appointing that person, and they go through the training and do it that way.
I will just throw this out here, and I'm not I don't mean to imply anything about Derek or any other one.
You have to
I will
be
just throw
generic.
this out here, that Derek is the town moderator. He is also a town employee who is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. His department's budget is approved by the Board of Selectmen and town administrator. His boss, the police chief, is appointed, his contract is approved
That's
by the
right.
Board of Selectmen.
There's a
And again-
conflict right
and-
there.
And again, my question is, why all of a sudden does this have to change? It's been in place, it's not messing with any, law or regulation that has suddenly changed. We are not the only community who has done it. Even before Will's time,
Yeah.
when people used to come to pre-town meeting and fill these chairs up, if there was an opening, they would do the same thing. Ask the moderator, do you have anybody, is there anybody left over from town meeting that didn't show up, and you have their form?
By the way, you know how I got onto this committee? I went to a special town meeting, or a meeting of the advisory board. And all I did was point out to the fact that the bylaw says that you can appoint somebody. The chairman at that particular time says, do you want to be on? And I went, yes, and they voted me on right that night. I was able to come in and say something then. If we had waited, it would have been after the annual town meeting.
No. It's
And a lot of things
I-
happened
I
that
see.
year.
Okay, so here's the part, I'm not saying, if it's 4 months after town meeting and someone on this committee decides to resign, and then the moderator can't find somebody in 30 days, and we do find somebody, I'm not saying you have to wait for town meeting for him to appoint them, he just appoints them, it's no different than his 30-day period. He just appoints them, we're just telling him, you gotta fill this form out, and it's a sort of more of a formalized process of, you fill the form out, okay, Holly tells him, hey, we have this, someone that wants to be on advisory, there's an open spot, he appoints them, they go to the town clerk, get sworn in, and that's that.
Let me talk about my experience
Well,
on when I got
hold
on.
Just a second.
I
can.
I just wanna interrupt here for a second and clarify something. If there's, someone resigns, so there's an opening, and either a member or somebody is here, or somebody comes to a meeting and says, I'm interested in serving on the committee. The way the bylaw reads right now, all you really need to do is, they don't have to go through fill out the form
Right.
and let Holly know, hey, I'm interested, I'm doing this. We let them know that we have an opening on here.
Right. All they do is show up,
If someone comes in and they wanna be on the advisory committee, the committee talks about it, what's your background, what's your interest, can you make, the meetings, do you have the time to do this? You're not a town employee, you're not elected, you're not on any other town board, committee or nothing, okay. We take a vote, all right, we vote you on the spot, this is what you have to do. You have to go to the town clerk, the chairman will inform the town clerk that there was an opening, the committee voted to put that person on the committee until the next town meeting. So let the town clerk know, then that person has to go and get sworn in and get a card. And then they can come to the next meeting of the advisory committee and sit up here and participate. They have a certain number of days where they are supposed to fill out and do the conflict of interest training and the open meeting law, read it. And the chair has typically said, here, here's a copy, or this is where you can get that. And sometimes you can get it from the town clerk as you're sworn in. And they have a specific number of days allowed by law, but they are still able to come to the next meeting of the advisory committee and participate. It saves time, it saves them from having to track down the moderator, and right now, when are you gonna get a hold of Derek? I mean, he's a police officer in town, I don't want him, running down to town hall when
He
he's on duty.
doesn't work 24 hours, though.
To do this and that stuff. And my biggest thing is, why all of a sudden does this have to change? What was the reason where suddenly the town administrator and the board of selectmen thinks that this has to change? I know the reason is, I've heard it, well, it's gonna formalize this, that. No, what is the reason? I have my personal idea, but this didn't become a big issue until a special town meeting in 2016, where this committee made a recommendation for the town to not transfer money out of the stabilization fund over to the long-term debt. And there was a big huggaboo about it. There was illegal information, improper, you didn't get permission, you didn't get this. We did what we were supposed to do. We advised town meeting, if you vote for this, this is how much money you're gonna have left in your stabilization fund. And it turns out it was gonna be even less than the numbers that everybody had, including the selectmen.
So then I guess what I would like to do is start with the document that I wrote as a baseline. Let's go over each section, 1, 2, 3. We'll make changes, we'll vote on and I recommend we vote on sections as we get through them. I'll make the real-time changes right now and then send it out to everybody.
Well, if you want to make a motion, I'll make a motion that to keep the,
Well, let's,
section-
well, hold
We'll
on,
start
wait,
at-
we'll start at section
What
1,
Tony's
Will.
saying is do section 1, like we started when we first, at the last meeting, we started looking at
I'm just
first
looking at which
section,
one.
second section.
So if you have it on your computer, this is TAC bylaw Rev 1 accepted changes is the document that I'm working off of, not what Jeff sent out or anything, and I will make the real-time changes to this document. I will track the changes.
Sorry, you said the R1?
You want the R1?
Yeah, the R1.
Got it.
I will track changes, and then once it's saved and everything, I will send it back out to everybody. But I recommend that we vote on each section, and then we get one last okay that I have changed the document according to the votes.
okay, I'll make a motion to take accept section 1 as written.
Let's see.
Should we have Tony read it out loud? And then we can follow along and make sure
Okay.
we're all on the same document
Sure.
and then vote for
Yeah.
yes or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Just to make sure it's not super long. Is that okay? with you?
No, okay. So section 1 says, there shall be an advisory committee consisting of 7 legal voters of the town who shall be appointed by the moderator as hereinafter provided. No elective or appointive town officer or town employee shall be eligible to serve on said committee. Advisory committee members shall be entitled to serve upon any committee for which membership is specifically provided for in these bylaws. In addition, members of the advisory committee may serve upon temporary ad hoc committees convened for a single purpose, such as the screening of applicants for employment or appointment and examination of policy issues, when such bodies will be dissolved upon the completion of when such bodies will be dissolved upon the completion of their work. Now, it has these amended, I don't know if those are relevant, if that has to be in there by law. I left it all in there. But that's section 1.
And there's no changes made to
There-
that from what is current?
I am not
You
gonna
don't
make,
know? Okay.
I don't know, I have Jeff's document, but I haven't like merged them.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't wanna do that. So if people wanna make a change, just say section 2, paragraph, or section 2, line 3, change to X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
The only thing on this, and I watched the the codification meeting, and what he said kind of made sense. And that's what I did, in the revision, the last revision that I did, was instead of repeating advisory committee, just have there shall be an advisory committee, and then after that, just said the committee, or said committee. It just cuts down, I mean, it doesn't really matter, it's just like a repetitive or redundant,
Right, they were doing
should-
that.
It
Yeah.
should, it should specify the capital planning, because that is actually in the capital planning document.
So because of the fact that you can be on other committees, I like the fact that advisory committee is spelled out each time.
Like I said, I don't have any problem with it, I just saw that
Well, this is just our take on it anyway, and town council will still have his crack at it.
If
To
it makes-
make it cohesive, if it makes it
onto the
that far,
warrant.
right, if it makes it onto the warrant, then town council will already have his look at it,
He
and
can
he'll
make
adjust the
suggestions
language and thing like,
that it-
and
you
we'll be
know.
part of that process too.
Well, that's been a problem in the past,
So,
even
We'll be
have,
part of that
even,
process.
even after it's been reviewed by town council. Just warning you ahead of time.
No,
but that was my only thing, it just, I mean, I got no problem with if it says, instead of the committee, it just says advisory committee and keeps repeating, but, like I said, I just caught what he said, and it does make sense.
So I think
but-
where it says like may serve upon any committee, I think we need to make sure we distinguish advisory committee. That's just my personal feeling.
So, okay, anyone else have a question or comment on that section?
The only thing I would say is that in the present bylaw, as it's written per se, it does specify the capital planning, and the capital planning does reference us. No other committee or whatever reference us, and I think you should have a reference between the capital planning bylaw and this bylaw so it's consistent. That they're both saying that a member can be on the capital planning.
it says that on the original.
What that would do is, if you look at the advisory committee, it would let you know, without having to search
Or it was on there.
other sections, to find out that the advisory
that's his.
can be
This is
on
Well,
the
that's
This
the,
is the capital planning.
capital planning committee.
okay, the present town bylaw I'm talking about.
So
May.
I don't think it's our place to say we should be on certain committees. We could have our vote, but that doesn't mean it would happen. It's capital planning should say, we'd like a member of advisory on
Well,
there.
it's,
So
It's in the
therefore, it
bylaw.
should be in their bylaws,
It is in the
and
bylaw.
it doesn't need to be in ours.
Why not?
Because what if they decide they don't want somebody from advisory?
Then
We
we'd have to
can't
change
force,
our bylaws
we can't
too.
force our way into committees.
what, capital planning cannot say we don't want advisory without going to town meeting
And changing the bylaw,
bylaw.
right, so it
Right.
doesn't need to be in ours.
There isn't a community that I am aware of, and I've looked at a lot, that doesn't say that people on this finance or whatever are on capital planning. That actually says it. And in some fact, and some of them go even further, is saying that anything that happens in capital planning has to end up being voted on by this committee, in essence.
That's not our job.
Is the bylaws, the general bylaws that are on the website,
Yes, they are.
okay, so it doesn't have the capital planning on there?
It
It
doesn't?
just says, in addition, members of the advisory committees may serve upon temporary ad
Yeah.
hoc committees.
No, in the capital planning bylaws,
It says that
Yeah.
we can serve on there.
that's what Will is saying, that it says that there will be a member of advisory. So since it says that covers us. I don't think that we have, I don't know if it's the authority, what the right word is, to say we are gonna be on, in our bylaws, we're gonna be on that.
Well, we don't have the authority. The town, whatever we write up here and is submitted as an article, the town votes on it. It's not us that's voting on this that they can end up doing. If they want to change the wording, they can.
How is it different with capital planning saying that it requires a member of the advisory committee? How is it different? How are we not covered? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask. How are we not covered to have advisory representation on capital planning since it's already in their bylaw?
Let's see, where is capital?
I'm just taking your word for it, it's in their bylaw.
It is under the capital planning bylaws.
Yeah, it just got changed,
That was
it
just
used
written.
to specifically say in the advisory committee, and,
It just goes into,
Just go back.
just trying to read where it says, yeah.
So there's general bylaws.
general bylaws. It should be there. Should show you all the bylaws.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so under
Capital,
planning.
the capital planning bylaw states, there is hereby authorized the Capital Improvements Committee to be composed of 5 members as follows. 1 from the Board of Selectmen, 1 from Advisory Committee, 2 from
It's
the
a
community
familiar
at large,
It's in
appointed by the Board of Selectmen,
Oh.
and the town treasurer collector. The
Yeah.
town administrator or designee shall serve as a non-voting ex officio member, provided, however, that this person shall be designated by the chair as a voting member whenever the committee lacks a quorum because of a recusal of a member, or to provide a sufficient number of members to establish a quorum and conduct business. So, if you look at that and it says we can be on any committee, if you want to ensure that you can serve on the capital planning committee, then you would have to go down. It used to say, this section, capital planning
Yep.
and the insurance advisory committee.
That's correct.
It used to say
So it
specifically.
would just be for clarity
In that
and
section,
for ease of reference.
but.
Um,
And it would be a little redundant, you know, if it's in this this article of the bylaw, and then it's in another one. But. I mean, I'm not gonna lose a lot of, well, I wouldn't argue too strongly for that one.
No, I make a motion to accept
Again, the town
section 1
thought
as
it was
written.
all right in 17, so,
So I make a motion to accept section 1 as written.
I second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to, okay, section 1 of the proposed bylaw change. Any other questions or comments? All right, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay. Yes. All right.
No. Ready for section 2?
Yes.
I really have to read this, huh? All right, so section 2, the moderator of the town meeting, when this bylaw is adopted, shall within 30 days after such bylaw becomes effective, appoint 2 members of said committee for terms of 1 year, 2 members for terms of 2 years, and 3 members for terms of 3 years. The moderator of the town shall within 30 days after adjournment of every annual town meeting appoint for a term of 3 years the number of persons as may be necessary to provide a committee with 7 members. The terms of office of said members shall commence immediately upon meeting the qualifications, parentheses, i.e., this is completing the required training and being sworn in by the town clerk, and close parentheses, and shall expire at the close of the final adjournment of the annual town meeting at which their successors are appointed. Said committee shall choose its own officers, shall serve without pay, and it shall be caused to kept of a true record of its proceedings. And then there's the amended 511.
Can I see that for a second? I don't have, I may have.
I do have a problem with the training issue. There is no training that's really required. All you have to be is a member of this community.
But you
Well-
can't be a member without doing the open law meeting
But
training.
You can participate, but you have to do, the open meeting law, you have 2 weeks. Like if you're elected like if you're elected selectman, planning board or whatever, you can show up at a meeting and participate,
Right.
and you have 2 weeks upon, being sworn in to do the open meeting law training. The, conflict of interest,
I don't have a heartburn taking that out. What I was trying to do is just sort of delineate what was meant by qualifications. We put the term qualification in, so I was just trying to say the qualification is being sworn in, competing to open meeting law training.
There is really
But
no
there isn't one.
qualifications.
Apparently, you just need to be a town resident. Do you have to be a registered voter
It-
to be on this committee?
It doesn't say that in most, you have to be a member
I
of
was
the.
just curious.
You have to be a member of the community.
So that's it.
yeah, you have to live in the
You,
town.
you would hope that the person who wants to
Oh,
get
of
on.
course, of
Right.
course. I'm just saying, for a lot of things, you have to be a registered voter to do XYZ, like
Yeah,
in
most
that town.
Most communities end up
Yeah,
choosing
well,
somebody that's a registered voter.
I
Right.
believe you would have to be, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to go and speak.
Okay,
town
Without getting approved, you'd have to, the moderator would have to.
so let me
approve
ask this so we
Yeah.
make sure this is a complete sentence. The sentence that's in question is, the terms of office of said member shall commence immediately upon meeting the qualifications. Then I added that other stuff, and shall expire at the close of the final adjournment of the annual town meeting at which their successor is appointed. There are no qualifications they have to meet?
No. Once they're on, they are required by law to end up taking the,
The conflict of
What if we,
interest.
what if we changed the word qualifications to requirements and spelled out the open meeting law, conflict of interest, and being sworn in by the town clerk?
I think that's redundant because it's already covered.
Where?
you know, in Mass General laws. Mass General laws spell out what you have to take and end up doing to be on, is a conflict of interest and also
You have to obtain and
Yep.
understand, you sign a form that says
Right.
you have a copy, you read it, you understand, and you agree to stay abreast of any changes to the open meeting law. And you have 2 weeks from the time that you're elected or
correct.
appointed or whatever. That's not a requirement to
should
be
go away.
appointed to this committee. It's just one of the things that you have to do
Once you're on the
when
committee.
you serve on this committee.
Can
And then
you-
every 2 years, and the town's liaison with the state is Rich Curtis, and he sends around an email and says, hey, it's time to, do this and this.
Can you vote on this committee if you're not sworn in by the town clerk?
no,
That's a requirement.
That's what I
It
was
should
gonna
be in there.
Well, you have to be sworn in.
You have to be sworn
Before
in.
you can serve on anything. But once you're sworn in, she always doesn't usually, sometimes she'll say, well, come in a couple of days and you get your card.
Okay, so then I would suggest that we change it, the terms of office of said member shall commence immediately upon being sworn in by the town clerk. Take all the rest of it out, and shall expire at the close.
The final adjournment.
The annual town.
Yep. That would.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
Shall commence immediately upon.
make the changes on this.
I'm,
I'll let you make the
I'm
changes.
gonna,
Oh,
I'm gonna do it.
actually-
Yep.
Actually, I can,
Town clerk should be capitalized.
I mean, it's easier if I do it that way, but I can actually,
Now, you can be on the committee, have a discussion without being sworn in. Once you're sworn in, then you can end up voting.
well, you really shouldn't sit.
And
Let's see.
once you go get sworn in, you have 2 weeks after that time to take and fill out the necessary, as far as
Okay,
conflict of interest and.
so this is
the
how
other
that
laws.
sentence will read. The terms, actually, it should be, terms of office of said members shall commence upon being sworn, I'm sorry. The terms of office of said members shall commence immediately upon being sworn in by the town clerk and shall expire at the close of the final adjournment of the annual town meeting at which their successors are appointed. Takes the word qualifications out and all the other stuff I put in.
Well, if you say commenced, that leaves them out of any discussion. We've had members come in,
Okay, give me a
Vote that
different,
night
give me a
on
different
them.
word for commence.
they've actually sat there, had discussion, they couldn't vote, but they were part of the, I mean, we should take, if somebody is willing to come in and sit here,
That-
we should listen to what they have to say, whether they're a voting member or not, before they're sworn in.
But that could be any member of the general public though, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, they're just a member of the public until they're
Right,
sworn in.
right.
think-
But
I
once-
think the-
Once we vote them in, per
Yeah.
se, that night, we've had people actually come in and sit on the board, have discussions.
But there's
I mean,
still-
that's what happened with me. I actually sat, I couldn't vote on it, but I was part of the discussion of what was going on that evening. And I had to take it, end up not voting.
This article seems specific to when the moderator appoints at town meeting. Is that correct? This article is just about if they're appointed at town meeting, not about a vacancy.
Yeah, this
Oh,
section is
okay.
just
This,
for.
this,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
section is specific to
Vacancies,
town
section
meeting
3.
vacancies only, not what you're talking about,
Okay,
which
okay.
is further down.
That's under section 3, the way Tony has it
Okay.
organized.
All right,
I mean, the way it's outlined.
Does that make sense now, Will?
So what you
Okay.
said to be,
Thank
taking
you.
out the qualifications and stuff?
Yeah, I took out qualification, meeting the qualifications and then the parentheses. And then,
You just squished together. You took out immediately sworn in
So-
by the town clerk.
Just-
Shall
Yeah.
commence
If
upon
you're
being
looking at
sworn
your
in by the
version, it
town
would just
clerk.
say,
All the
terms
other
of
stuff
office
in
of said
between is
members
it.
shall
Right.
commence immediately upon being sworn in and shall expire. So qualification just gets replaced by
Right.
being sworn in.
Yep.
Can I ask a question about the first sentence of section 2?
sure.
Obviously, when the bylaw was first passed, that sentence was a requirement because
Right.
it didn't exist before. Just, do we leave that in for historical purposes or, because it's
that can
not
be,
needed?
that can be changed. I mean, to me, they put that in because of the bylaw when it was first written.
Right, it was
I
absolutely
mean,
necessary.
after that particular time, it's really up to him to end up at the close of your term, your 3-year term, or say you only had one year
Yep.
or whatever. After that particular time, he's to appoint somebody,
Right.
some people for 3 years.
So could section 2 just start with the second sentence altogether, which is exactly what you're saying? Because that's what the current, so unless this bylaw were completely gotten rid of and then brought back, that first sentence, right, today is not necessary,
I think it's important for that to be there so
Okay.
people will know.
how it came about.
Well, it also specifies the staggered terms. Because
what I
if
was
you
just
don't
gonna
have
say.
that there, they will just, hey, everybody, why?
Because
how come-
last year, there were 5 people appointed.
Right.
And if the staggering hadn't happened, then there'd be 5 of us
Right.
on this committee
In
right now that would
particular
all
case-
expire at the
In that
same
particular case, you're
time.
right.
So having this
We're
sentence
gonna have a
there
contingency for both
keeps
because,
that
Yeah.
established.
And some
yeah,
of this,
because normally it should only be one person or 1 or 2 people for 3 years.
That's right.
But if you have a whole board like this last year.
Yes.
You're probably forced to
It-
have
so
something like this. in.
Except the problem, so I hear what you're all saying.
Yep.
Except actually, section 2, even with that first sentence, in no way implies that when the moderator replaces, where does it say, appoint for a term of 3 years, the number of persons as be necessary, actually, that explicitly states that it's not staggered for however many people. If he puts in 7 people, it's for a term of 3 years. It's explicitly stated there. So I'm not disagreeing that it should be staggered. I think that's a great idea, but that actually should be written in there if that's what we want.
but if like 3
Right.
people, say 3 people resign.
Yep.
And it may happen that,
I see what you're saying, Lee.
you could get 3 people and they would be on there for, and be
Well-
on there for the same 3 years.
Yeah.
But if it has been followed correctly, that should be a rarity. Because
should-
like last
yeah.
year, there was two people, their terms were up
Yeah.
in 18. Another one,
Had a year.
one term, yeah, she was same as me, 2020, so there was a year to go on hers. And another individual who resigned, I think he was up
Yeah, had a
This-
couple of years.
this year in 19.
Yeah, he would have been,
So, again, I'm not disagreeing, but so if you read this, it says, "The moderator of the town shall within 30 days after the adjournment of every annual town meeting, appoint for a term of 3 years the number of persons as may be necessary to provide a committee of 7 members." So what this is saying is, if all 7 of us step down at the end of our term this year,
yeah.
then all 7 people would be brought in for 3 years.
Yeah, you're
So,
right.
so again,
Yeah,
if we
you're
want
right.
it to be
Okay.
staggered, and I have no problem with that, that's not
That's
what
not
this
what that
says, though.
says.
So we need to fix this.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
on the original one, it has like, it says that same sentence, it's 3 members for 3 years. Right?
But that's upon when the bylaw first became effective, which was whenever that was. That doesn't apply to at any point after that. So, again, if we want to have this be staggered regardless of the number of people at that point in time, then we just need to put that in there.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, let's just make that clear within.
Yeah, it should be clear
Yep.
as to give him the opportunity to take and fill positions if they're, and stagger them.
Yeah.
So-
Because he shouldn't have to take and end up seeing 7 people go and then appoint for
All
3
7
years.
for
It's
3
just,
years. Yep.
that's just
I think
foolish.
those
It's
whole-
I
just-
agree.
both those
Totally agree.
sentences need
Yep.
Well, he did stagger.
He
did.
did.
He
But
did.
he didn't have to, I don't think.
Right, according to this, if this is copied from what we have, then he didn't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
The moderator of the town shall.
That is what I know the Ashburnham bylaw reads this, just like this.
Mhm.
And that's where I got that.
Yep.
And there are multiple other towns that have that same wording.
So is it possible that it's just like a legal sentence and,
I think,
It would,
Interesting.
no, if it was a legal sentence, it would have to have the legal reference in it.
I mean, this has been approved by
yeah.
town council and the attorney generals. I mean, if it was, not that the attorney general hasn't missed things or town council hasn't missed things, but, and not just Templeton.
So how would this sound? The moderator of the town, after 30 days of adjournment, the annual town meeting, appoint for the appropriate term the number of persons necessary to provide a committee of 7 members whose terms of service or something
Staggered
like.
terms.
Or to ensure that the terms are staggered, or, I'm trying to say something
Getting
like
so,
what Lee
like,
was
wordy,
saying,
yeah.
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 Well, I would just, instead of possibly us making a mess of something without if we vote this as it is, I mean, I'll just assume that section 2, nobody has a problem with, and we vote it in, and when we at some point in time, when we vote on a complete article, if we put attach a question to it, the town council, does this stagger, does it affect it in any way with removal or not? Yes, no?
Well, so I would use this year as an example, that when the 5 new people, Deb notwithstanding, because she's after, there was, I think, 1 person for 1 year, 2 year, and I think he maybe looked at yours and Will's existing terms to ensure that there was a stagger in effect. I see what you're saying, though, Lee, it is confusing.
Like, there should have been 2 people for 3 years, because there were 2 people up in 18, well, 1 person who had been put on by the committee, and the person that he replaced, their term was up in 18. So there was 2 people that were up in 18
Right.
anyway. There was 1 that should have been up in 19, and there was another one who was up with me in
Right.
20.
Yeah.
So that was a 2-year. There was 2 3-years, at least 1 2-year, a 1-year, and
There was one person
I
that
lost
had a
track of
3-year
the-
appointment
I
and
lost
had only
track.
gone 1 year.
I lost
And actually,
track of the other one.
he needed somebody for 2 more years, so it was staggered.
Right,
I-
so-
I- what
So do
about
we
the-
want to change this, other than being sworn in by the town clerk, that sentence Do we want to change anything else in this section?
I think what Jeff said makes sense. So it sounds like we're in agreement that we do want staggering. So yeah, if we can just get clarification on that and the wording covers it, then fine, not a problem.
Yeah.
We can send him just this section. Lee and I were at the meeting the other day, and he
Yeah.
was saying, if people have questions, if they have thoughts, he's like, send it to me now. He's like, I'd rather work on it piece by
So we
piece.
could
Yeah.
do
So we
that
could send it.
and
Well, I was gonna suggest, even though right now we're accepting these, I think at a subsequent meeting, we should go over them one last time and accept them as a whole.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I could send that question to Tom about this one. Like I said, before because sometimes things that make sense, you do it and then there's and you make a bigger mess than,
Well, if you got rid of the second sentence per se, because it gives the implication of a 3-year term for 7 members, and you left just a staggering, and basically it says staggering, 2 members for 1 year, 2 members for 2 years, and 3 members for 3 years,
You just took the.
and you
the
get rid
term
of the
3
second
years out.
sentence, because the second sentence basically says 30 days, annual town meeting, appoint for the term of 3 years, the number of persons.
Yeah, we could take
As
this
may be
out.
necessary.
Appoint as may be necessary to provide a committee. Just take out the words for a term of 3 years, the number of persons. So right here, the moderator of the town shall within 30 days after the adjournment of every annual town meeting appoint as may be necessary to provide a committee of 7 members.
That's
You know what,
right.
I think that's right, and
Put-
then,
put
and then
something
what
that's
it'll do
staggered.
is up above.
No, because
it'll
the up
cover
above
the
part is still there, it
staggering.
already it
Yeah.
covers the staggering.
Right,
So we just need to take out that part of the sentence.
yeah.
Will, you've done it!
but, see, he's on for, but you still have 2 members appointed for 2 years.
Two
So
for-
when they come up for their reappointment, they need to be appointed
They would be appointed for
3
3,
years.
yeah.
Right.
And that's where that, as many members to,
I think that this
Right.
staggering, I think partially this whole section comes to a case like this year when there was 5 openings that, he knew they had to stagger it.
plus when you start the initial thing, you don't want a brand-new rollover in case, you wanna try to keep
Right.
somebody who has, like, figured the game out, or.
There's been only 2 times that I know of that this would have been an issue. And why do I say that? Because this last year was number 1. And in 2013, it was a completely new board. I mean, completely. All 7 members
Yeah.
were appointed that particular year because there was nobody,
So
as
we're
far
gonna
as
take
staying
that
on.
for a term out of the 3 years, the number of persons.
Okay.
Okay?
So do we wanna leave it as is
Should we put
and get
Appoint the number of
a
people,
clarification, town council,
Point
number
or?
of
as
persons
may be
as may be
necessary.
necessary.
They're
Just
considering
take
a-
out
I think they're
the,
considering
a
a
term of
small
3 years.
change. That said, I would highly recommend
For-
whatever change we make,
take
that
out
we run
just
it
the
by
words for a
town
term of
council.
3
Yeah.
years. Now look at it, don't erase it yet.
I just wanna,
Point,
We should leave it.
number
I
of
don't wanna go
persons,
too
yes.
late,
Say,
you
Agreed.
start in the game, and
so
they go,
this would
oh,
be
by
on
the
half
way,
for 1, 2 for 2,
Yeah,
3
you
No,
know,
she
for
was
3.
just letting it
if
out.
we're
Then
early
next year,
enough,
These
Yep.
people
We're
would
kinda
have
late,
2
but
years.
we're
No,
early-
but let's
still early
leave it
enough
and
that
then
we
we'll
could-
flag it anyways and we'll
2
see
people.
what we can get.
Well, I'm
for
gonna,
clarity.
I'll save it
Things
with
that
the
other towns
changes,
have
Three
it
people
so you can
same
see
word.
where
What
it
you took
shows,
out.
And
this
so
shows
what
where it
happens
came
is-
out.
is
When
At work, when I have work,
This
it
person
says
somewhere
is
there's
done.
some
line
reason
through it, I don't know why it
for
doesn't
that
do
to be
that.
there.
For one
Still.
year.
these 2 people for 1 year,
Okay,
they come
so-
in, they
So
get
do we wanna
appointed
make a
for 3
motion to
years.
accept
If
this
they
with a
stay.
note to run it by town
Right.
council, or what do you want?
They go here, they go
That's-
here.
What do we think?
That's
So
correct.
you're
Okay, but,
still
but
staggered.
before
Yes.
we
So then
make the
following year,
motion,
you
so
need to
I took
appoint
out, so that second
another
sentence
2
reads,
people again for
Yep.
3 years, right?
Yep.
Yeah, wait
And
till
then
they're
the
ready.
following year after that, you'd have to appoint
Right,
3
so as long as
people.
it's
So they'd
staggered.
always be
Okay.
staggered.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's only one time there's 3
so,
numbers.
so the sentence will now read, the moderator of the town shall, within 30 days after the adjournment of every annual town meeting, appoint the number of persons as may be necessary to provide the committee with 7 members. So it took out that term of 3 years. So this way, in the case of this year, he had to appoint 5 members, which he did, and he did it in a staggered, which it tells it above.
So, let's
Hopefully-
say, I just have a question, because
Sure.
I'm a little confused. So let's say all of us stay, next year, how does he reappoint us then?
The only people that are reappointed is if your appointment's up.
So you would have
Your
two
appoint-
Your
two
appointment's
people.
up.
So like your
In your
appointment's up.
case, your appointment will be up, okay?
Right,
Because you're filling in for somebody.
okay, so then,
If he was appointed for 1 year at the annual town meeting, if you don't put a resignation in, you'll be appointed for 3 years.
but you're not saying that.
But it
in there.
doesn't say
You don't
that.
have to.
It won't say that in here, if you take out for a term of 3 years. It won't say that in here.
It just says the number
Yeah,
of
but see, I
person.
think that, I see what you're saying.
It's confusing because up above, the very first sentence talks about 2 members for 1 year, 2 members for 2 years, 3 members for 3 years. Do you know what I
That was
mean?
the first time,
So-
the
Right,
first go-round, and then after that, because if you're appointed for 1 year, then next year,
You
if
get
it doesn't
appointed
say
for
see,
three,
that's
but then
almost-
everybody else's appointments are shifting up,
That first statement is almost for the initial formation of the committee.
right?
That's exactly what it is.
So is it even necessary?
That's what I was
That's
asking.
what he was talking
Yeah,
about
that's-
before.
That's what led to this entire
Should we
conversation.
maybe table this and work on it some more? And then
Well, I
look
think
at
you
it next
could
time?
ask for clarification
Yeah,
as
for
how
sure.
that would be best worded from whether it's the attorney or whoever, like
Right.
how, because I agree, I think that's the initial setup, and then it
Okay,
would
yeah.
always be staggered if you're always appointing those people who come up for expiration
do you
to
want to
a
just go
term.
through the rest of them and see if we come up with any more questions for that or clarifications? And just ask them all at the same
So I'm
time?
gonna undo
sure.
that, I'm gonna undo that one change. I am gonna leave the one being sworn in by the town clerk, and I'll send that out to everybody that way.
Okay,
For the 3 years?
yep,
Yeah.
he's gonna leave that in.
Not, I'm gonna leave the 3 years in for right now,
Okay,
but I did take out meeting the qualifications, et cetera.
okay.
Okay, so section 3, vacancies. If a member resigns his or her position for any reason, or if any member is absent from 5 consecutive meetings of said committee, except in case of illness, his or her position shall be deemed vacant and shall be filled herein as provided, as herein provided. The committee shall notify the moderator to determine if there are any interested town citizens to fill a vacancy. The moderator shall be given 30 days to fill open positions. The term of office of anybody chosen will be to fill the vacancy, the expired adjournment of the next succeeding annual town meeting. And the moderator thereof shall appoint his successor to complete the unexpired term of the member in whose office such vacancy originally occurred. That seems redundant.
Okay, so,
I've already stated my position of,
No,
right,
that notwithstanding, I know that's
this might be
coming.
a small change, but at the end, you say the moderator shall appoint his successor, and at the top, you're doing his, her.
Yeah,
so
no,
just,
I wanna
like,
make sure, yeah,
choose it.
where's that?
It's the next to the last full line.
We don't want to come under fire of the Me Too movement.
No, I just think if it's gonna say his, then it should
Yeah,
all say
but
his.
know,
I don't think,
Be
yeah.
consistent.
I don't see that
I
either.
get you.
right,
I don't think we should leave out the provisions of
successor.
having this committee
You don't have the, oh.
fill
sorry.
vacancies.
Oh, I know.
So I don't care if it all says his, that's fine.
No, it's not, no, that's not correct. I mean, because there are ladies on this
And
committee.
I wonder if instead of said committee, we should say advisory committee, because that was what we were doing before.
Yep,
So,
Instead of said committee, say advisory committee, the advisory committee shall notify, blah, blah, blah. That's just consistency,
Yep.
I think, so,
I agree.
doesn't get to the heart of the matter.
But that, the term of office of any person shall expire at the end, expire at the final adjournment of the next succeeding annual town meeting.
Right, which is what it says over
And it
here.
should say
You could just
period.
put there and eliminate the
Shall
his or.
expire at the close of the final adjournment of the annual town meeting at which their successors are appointed.
But that says the same thing.
Yep,
So I think that the and moderator and after that should all come out. The last 2 lines, after meeting, it should be a period after meeting.
Yes, because that last,
Okay, wait a minute.
That's in the
The term
section
of office,
before.
any person chosen to fill a vacancy shall expire at the, so is it gonna expire, so there, it's sort of saying two different things. Is it gonna expire at the final adjournment? So if someone comes in and fill a vacancy, but that position had a year and a half left, does that still expire at the annual town meeting? Or does it expire at the unexpired term of the member whose office? So it's saying two different things.
well, not really, because if somebody comes on board, let's say it did take us 6 months to fill a vacancy for a 1-year term, so the person's only gonna serve 6 months.
Right.
It's still gonna expire at the end of,
Annual town meeting,
annual
but what
town
if it's a
meeting.
year and a
What
half?
if
What if
it's-
it's,
yeah.
Even
what
if
if it's
if
somebody
the person
else's?
comes in 6 months to
Right,
fill a
it doesn't
3-year
matter.
term.
That's right.
it expires at the.
Still
expires at
expires.
annual
Okay.
town
That's
meeting.
right.
So then,
Right.
then to me, after annual town meeting, it should be period. And then, and the moderator shall there report his or her success for, oh, I see what it's trying to say.
Yes, see,
Okay,
you get appointed for 3 years and 6 months in, you're gonna move. So someone comes in, we appoint them, they stay till the next town meeting.
That's
right.
it.
And then whoever gets
That's it.
appointed will only be a 2-year appointment.
Right.
So
Right.
then I
but
think it
that
should
goes back
say,
to section 2, doesn't it, with the staggering and all
Yeah.
that?
so then if we're
No.
gonna do it, so essentially at the town meeting, after the fill-in person, doesn't mean they can't apply, the moderator shall appoint his or her successor to complete the unexpired term. So if you have someone that's on a 3-year term, okay, and they resign for whatever reason after 6 months, that fill-in person
Serves
is
until
good to the next annual end of town meeting. Then,
whoever.
if they wanna do it, or whoever they appoint, they are only, there for
2
2
years.
years. And so.
Or it could be a year,
Or whatever's left
whatever's
over
left.
in that term. So I changed it to say after annual town meeting, I put a period, and then I put the moderator shall appoint his or her successor. Let's see why I did that. To complete the unexpired term of the member whose office such vacancy originally occurred. So that's basically, it's kind of wordy, but it's basically saying, then at the end of at the town meeting, the moderator will appoint someone for the remaining term.
We actually had a situation a couple of years ago where we had somebody actually fill in, take the position on this committee, and because they had taken like 6, 7 months after they'd been on, and they were, this lady was excellent. I mean, she worked for other governments, agencies per se. She took a job somewhere where she could not participate anymore, and she basically resigned. It was too bad because I saw her as a very valuable member because of the knowledge she brought from working on other towns' governments per se and agencies that she worked at. But because she took the job and it was shift work, she just could not, she knew she couldn't participate.
Okay.
So I think, if I understand this
Actually,
correctly,
instead of taking his or
section
her, I
3
put
actually
the word
solves
a
the
in
problem
there.
that we had in section 2, and
There.
means that we should leave the phrase term of 3 years in section 2. Because if we all resign, and we're already staggered, that last sentence in section 3 overrides what's going on as far as the 3-year term, and would force whoever comes in from the next 7 to automatically be staggered, because they'd only be finishing off
Whatever.
what our terms
Right.
were. So actually, I think we're good. Yeah, if we leave that, I think we're all set there.
Okay.
My only objection is that it does not give this committee the ability to take an
Oh,
appointment.
So that's a different,
That's
so
a
let's,
diff-
yeah, so let's just, let's say things
One
one
thing at a
step
Yeah,
at a
but
time.
the way it's written here is that we are not even included here. That's what
Yeah.
I'm objecting to.
absolutely
But some
understood.
of the wording, you're absolutely correct. That bottom line does spell out some
Does,
good
yeah,
stuff,
okay,
yes.
So here's how I changed the bottom line. The moderator shall appoint a successor to complete the unexpired term of said member. The said member is the person who's the open position, so I think that's understandable. Because this is specifically talking about vacancies only. I know, I mean, I wish I had a way I could share
Yeah,
this with everybody.
starting from the term of office all the way down to the end, I think that should stay.
So, well, I changed actually quite a bit. I said the term of office of any person chosen to fill a vacancy shall expire at the final adjournment of the next succeeding town meeting, period.
And you period, and then you,
Then I said the moderator shall appoint a
Okay.
successor to complete the unexpired term of said member. Because we're talking about a member who's of the vacancy.
Yes,
Yeah,
And then
if you break,
period,
even if you break that up, yes, I had,
and then
yeah, I
period.
think that's kind of,
yep.
Was
Unless-
it
I don't
annual-
know.
All you're doing is taking an and out.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Annual town meeting? Or
Yes,
just
annual town meeting.
Yeah, so Tony, is it,
It
do you
says
have
annual,
annual
yeah.
town meeting?
It
Yes,
says
he's
it
got annual
originally.
town meeting.
Okay,
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
It's in there,
Well,
it's annual town
so
meeting.
the moderator shall appoint a successor at the annual town meeting to complete.
No, when you read it, it just said the
No,
term
'cause
of
it-
office.
He
of any
does,
person
he does have it at the.
He has it in there.
The annual,
but
yeah.
I
Just
think we
before
read
that.
it. Okay.
so scratch and, the moderator shall appoint a successor to complete the unexpired term of the said member?
The moderator shall appoint a successor to to complete the unexpired term of said member.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay, good. So, Will, back to your,
Yes.
your point. So I understand what Tony's trying to say with the moderator shall be given 30 days, and I understand the timing and everything,
think
so
so,
we need to debate this.
Well, there's not,
To
I know, we'll talk about that.
avoid any conflicts of interest, I don't personally have any issues with allowing upfront, whether it be 30 days, 14 days, whatever we decide, the moderator to do that, but it should then say something like, moderator shall be given X number of days to fill the open position, upon which the said committee, or, after which the said committee shall fill the vacancy by vote.
I could,
Just to make sure that
Yes.
we've got both sides
right,
covered.
I could buy into that, because he
So
should
in
have
here-
30 days to, especially after the annual town meeting, to fill the
Yeah.
vacancies, that's number one. But if the vacancies
So-
appears after, it's
How-
really, we've given him 30 days
Yep.
in the past.
Yep.
I mean,
His motion.
as long as it comes down to, if he doesn't fulfill
doesn't do
his
it,
obligation,
Totally agree, totally agree.
then
Yeah.
it comes back to the committee. By the way, there is other communities that actually have that wording.
So tell me,
So we already have 30, he has 30 days at the end of town meeting to
Yeah.
appoint someone.
Right.
okay,
In
okay, so are we back on section 2, though?
No, no, no.
No, section 3.
So we're in section 3, your
So the
sentence that
ability for
says
us
the
to fill
moderator
the
shall be given 30 days to fill the open positions.
Right,
There needs to be something at the end of that says,
In
after
the
that
event
30
that he's
days,
unable to fill
then the
it.
committee can vote in.
You're worrying about said committee,
Yeah.
it can, and after the 30 days, if no
okay,
appointment
so
is done.
somebody give me
then-
words to put in, and then I'll read the
How
sentence.
about in the event that the
There
moderator
is another
is
community that
unable to
actually
fill
has
Hold
it?
on, Will, hold on, I don't care about other communities right now, I wanna know what we wanna put in our bylaw.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to use their wording so that since they have, has had
Okay.
run into this
Okay,
already.
just a second, I think
So-
Deb had an input.
Yeah, sorry, Deb.
So, what do we say? So if you add in after the moderator shall be given 30 days to fill the open position, in the event that the moderator is unable to fill said
Can't type that
position.
fast. In the
Sorry. It comes out of my head
event
so fast. In the event that,
The moderator is unable to fill the vacancy,
The duty should fall on said committee.
see,
and then wording that says we can vote.
So
to
the
accept
first
it.
line, the first original line of section
I
3,
thought I
if we
put
just,
either.
it says, "The said committee shall fill any vacancy which may occur in its membership by vote."
Yep.
So if we just copy that as sort of the end of the moderator's got 30 days.
Yes.
And tie those two things together with.
so where are you
whatever
looking at, Lee?
wording then.
Lee, where are you looking at?
So.
The original.
The original,
Okay, I don't have that
Said
original.
committee
Wow.
shall
No,
fill
here.
any vacancy which may
Just
occur
the
in its
original line of
membership by vote,
section
requested
3.
copy of which will be sent to the secretary of the town clerk.
Moderator of the town shall within
Shall be
30
given
days
30
of
days.
adjournment.
It's
Wait a
but
minute.
look,
No,
the first
section
sentence.
3.
Yeah,
Okay.
very first sentence of section 3.
It's important the importance there of the original bylaw is that if this committee votes somebody in, they have to notice, and it's not the secretary.
advisory
The
committee.
chairman usually notifies the town clerk
Shall fill.
that we have appointed somebody and they're coming in for being sworn in.
Okay.
And,
If we
and oh, by
go-
the way, not only that, the town clerk, but we've also carbon copied in the past, the moderator.
Yep.
So that he sees that somebody's coming in to be sworn in, and he knows that the vacancy,
Which may
that this
occur
committee found somebody and they're filling it.
within, in
So,
its membership.
so Tony's gonna add that wording, we'll reread it back.
In its-
Now,
no, it
Jeff
doesn't
did make
say
a
within,
valid
it just
point
says in
where,
its
the way it
membership.
stands today, if
Yeah.
someone walks in the door 30 seconds after
Comma,
resignation,
by vote.
we can fill that spot immediately. Now we're saying we're gonna give the moderator 30 days. To Tony's point, what
Co-
the,
comma,
what the action would be,
attested
to tell that person,
copy
go fill out
of
the form,
which
and the moderator can do it. Jeff, I know you might not,
shall be
you
sent.
might feel differently about that, but that's
Oh, I
kinda.
definitely feel different about that.
I do too, but I mean, I'm willing to compromise.
Well, that's what yeah.
By the
I
And
think
I
that's
have
kinda
more,
what
and I have
the
more
town
reasons
clerk.
than just.
Well, and that's the thing, I
committee
don't know your
maintaining.
reasons, so, yeah.
Well,
I
That's
think
the
adding
sentence.
That's a long
still
sentence.
leaves the door
It is, but
open.
it's the
so
first
that
sentence of the
if
former section
moderator
3.
You know what, maybe
doesn't
add
do due
positions.
diligence in getting somebody on
Right.
within
Semicolon.
30 days.
But it pushes it
leaves the
30
window
days.
open, right,
Right.
so.
Versus, potentially
okay,
immediately.
the
so-
moderator shall be given
There's
I'd like
30
to see
days
things
until
that
the
you
open
do.
Stays the
position.
way it is, but
Right.
in the sense of compromise,
Period.
that they can end up getting it so
Period.
that
In the
we,
event the moderator
we
is
have a
unable to fill
balance.
the vacancy, the advisory committee shall fill it.
I
After
still feel
30
uncomfortable
days,
about it,
if the
giving him 30 days,
position is
because they haven't done a good
unfilled,
job
This does
in the
have
past.
to say
If the
by the
position's
secretary
unfilled,
to the
then-
It's been
town
obvious
clerk.
to
we
me.
would go right back
Unclear,
to
so
the
right
first
back
line
to
here.
the
Right,
first
the
weird-
said committee
committee
shall fill- yeah.
Technically, his
vacancy
role is.
So that's
Secretary
exactly
is
what we're doing, yeah.
This last
Secretary.
moderator.
Now, again, I know that's not
Should be the chairman.
potentially
We've gone to him
ideal,
multiple
but I think that's a
times.
pretty good,
I mean,
well, I don't know.
when the
Well, no,
vacancies
because he
occurred,
keeps
it's
Oh,
not
damn it, I want my damn.
one
The
time that we
secretary.
notified him. It's been
Hang
a
around with
couple
Bear.
of times.
It's his way or no way.
You still have anybody? You still have anybody? Okay, we found somebody. We actually end up voting him in,
Especially when it comes to
notifying
little
him
kids.
and the town clerk.
Oh,
I mean,
he
that's-
loves it.
that's the
Oh,
step.
I think it's because they both like.
Those
to
are the steps that we
screw around,
actually have taken.
but
Okay.
Just
I
don't
mean,
get
this-
between him and his little
Going above and
buds.
beyond.
Mhm.
It's to can make sure that things are done
No, he growled at
correctly.
my buddy.
Oh, really?
He wanted to pick his son up, and Bear knew him before he knew his son.
How you guys doing down
He
there?
growled at him.
I think he's just
He really is a challenge typer.
wordsmithing it.
Oh, you ain't seen me type.
That's a tiny keyboard.
Yeah, I think that's the problem really is that it's small and
It's,
probably
it's
more
fine.
typing than he usually
Well,
does.
he's using more fingers than I have ever used.
Okay,
in
so-
typing.
Okay.
So
Usually
here-
it's not my
so-
typing, it's my
so here-
eyeballs.
So here's how we change that. The moderator shall be given 30 days to fill any open positions, period. In the event the moderator is unable to fill the vacancy, the advisory committee shall fill any vacancy which may occur in its membership by vote, attested copy, by vote, period. I'm kind of wordsmithing as we go.
Okay. Which puts that original sentence back in there.
Correct.
Yes.
And an attested copy of which will be sent by the advisory committee secretary to the town clerk.
Right.
So I broke the sentence up a little bit. I made
You
it
want to
three
leave the
sentences.
secretary do it or the chairman? Because the chairman has done it in the past.
The old line said the secretary.
Says secretary.
I asked
So
that
you're
question.
literally just copying it from one to the other, so.
Yeah, but it makes total sense.
Technically, technically it would be the secretary's job because they keep the minutes.
Oh, so I was
So,
supposed to do
so,
that last time?
so does anyone want me to read that whole paragraph again? And so this deals with vacancies. Okay, so it says vacancies. Section 3 vacancies, Amy and I kind of discussed on the side here, I think, should we have titles of the section? I don't know. I think some warrant that, but some don't. So it says vacancies, if a member resigns his or her position for any reason, or if any member is absent from 5 consecutive meetings of said committee, well, I'm gonna change that to advisory committee. of the advisory committee, except in case of illness, his or her position shall be deemed vacant and shall be, we don't need that comma or whatever that is in there, and shall be filled as herein provided. The advisory committee shall notify the moderator to determine if there are any interested town citizens to fill a vacancy. Well, we could put vacancy parentheses S, but the moderator shall be given 30 days to fill the open positions, period. In the event the moderator is unable to fill the vacancy, the advisory committee shall fill any vacancy which may occur in its membership by vote. I don't like the way that reads.
Well, I think that
Majority vote?
the which may occur in its membership,
Yeah,
that's kind of redundant at this point
I think,
Mm-hmm.
right. The advisory committee will fill any vacancy
by vote.
in it, right, I like that.
Yeah.
By vote in its membership. By its membership?
I don't think you need to put that in,
No, you just need to say fill any
Oh,
vacancy
oh.
by vote.
yeah. Attested copy of which shall be sent to the secretary of the town clerk. Yeah.
An attested, okay. Copy shall be sent by the advisory committee secretary to the town clerk. And we discussed, instead of just saying the advisory committee clerk, to delineate between the two.
Mhm.
The term of office of any person chosen to fill vacancy shall expire at the final adjournment of the next succeeding annual town meeting. The moderator shall appoint a successor to complete the unexpired term of said member.
Can you read,
I'm gonna put members, I'm gonna put,
With the S in the
yeah.
end.
Can I read what?
could you read the sentence where it begins, "The moderator shall be given 30 days"?
Right, it says the moderator shall be given 30 days to fill open positions, period.
Okay. And followed by,
In the event the moderator is unable to fill the vacancy, the advisory committee shall fill any vacancy by vote.
And I'm sure there's legal phrasing
I was just gonna
I
say,
just- I-
shall fill said vacancy.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty well like some other communities have
Yeah.
worded, it's close.
Close head, yeah.
I'm still voting.
By said vacancy.
Okay, I changed any to said vacancy. Problem is, you can't put vacancies.
By vote attested.
Right.
Because it's not, it's spelled
Yeah.
differently.
I mean,
By
because we're
vote,
already
yes.
talking about a vacancy,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing, Tony, I don't think you need to take into account plural. I think you only need to do singular, because
think
this
you're
would
right.
apply to every instance.
Right.
So if you
can
had
take away
three,
the-
this would
Okay,
just
so let me
apply
say, shall,
individually to
if
all
there are,
three.
to fill a vacancy, the moderator shall fill any open, I'll take that out.
You don't need to have
I
the
have an
S there,
interesting
just
question.
No, that's what I was thinking.
period. That's what
Even on
he's
this one.
saying.
Eagerly
Yeah,
awaited.
that, I agree.
And
You're gonna like this one.
Okay, Will
I
has a
think the his, her
question.
thing, you can probably get
So
rid of
look at-
too.
I look at a
But-
lot of
Yeah.
communities' bylaws.
Yeah,
You can
you
just
can-
put there, right?
Their position.
But I don't, if a member, I don't even
can
think you
pull it
need
out.
that. If a member resigns for
Resigns
any reason, I don't even think you need to,
Well, because it is a position, I see what you're saying.
yeah. And the other thing too is where it says, the said committee shall notify the moderator. Should we make that more clear as who's
Here's-
actually notifying the
Here's,
moderator?
here's a question that I ran across from another community.
Where is it?
If the member resigns his or her position or is absent for, especially the absent for 5 consecutive meetings, okay?
Yep.
And they're not ill, okay? His or her position shall be deemed vacant. Some communities have their advisory or finance actually vote on enacting the vacancy before they notify the moderator. And I just wanna throw that out to see what other people think. I mean, just because somebody is gone for 5 days, do you just tell the moderator? Or do you vote as a committee and saying, yes, the person has been absent for 5 times, and we're voting that the position is vacant, and then pass it on?
It doesn't say that in here.
I mean, I'm throwing that out as a
Throwing it
question.
out as another.
I saw another community
clarity
that actually
point
voted
for this.
on it. It was in the bylaw that they actually voted to end up calling that position vacant, because on meeting number 6, that individual could show up.
I guess my only concern with that is in order to vote, you have to have quorum. If 4 people didn't show up for 5 meetings in a row, you won't have enough people to actually vote.
That's true.
Yeah, so I do get your point, but
I would hope that we don't run into that.
I would hope so too, but I think.
Okay, so I think I have section 3 changed sufficiently to at least move on. Do we want to vote on section 3?
Again, quick question, where it says, "The said committee shall notify the moderator."
I put the advisory committee chairman shall
Chairman.
notify the moderator.
Perfect.
That's my
There
secretary.
you go. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this entire thing. I'm taking no notes at all right now. Okay,
Whoa,
good.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
good.
don't be saying that, you're the clerk, you're spot on.
I will be taking copious notes after this. It's all up here right now.
Okay. Okay, so I make a motion to vote on section 3 as we changed it.
With the changes,
Yeah, with the changes.
and we're gonna review these again anyway.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, this is just a preliminary.
Just-
I second the motion.
We can vote up or down this time or next time too.
Oh, you know what? I retract my motion.
Ugh.
I can't make a motion.
Okay, then I
Oh.
make the motion that Tony just tried to make. To accept section 3 preliminary with the changes as noted that he just read out.
I will second.
Thanks, Deb.
You'll see that.
All right, is that, anybody else have any issues or thoughts on that section?
Why? Because you're gonna say no.
If I understand it
This is
correctly,
preliminary.
I'll vote on it this time, but if I see it and I read it again and it doesn't strike
we're
me, I
gonna-
will end up
we're just
voting
trying-
against it.
This is just to sort of move forward.
Yes,
This is
I'm-
just another
right.
draft.
Yep,
But I do believe that we've addressed most of the concerns anyway,
Yep.
so.
it sounded that way.
I believe.
All right. Everybody's all set with that, good to go?
Mhm.
Tony,
No.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Yes,
That's why I didn't make the motion, because I don't think we need to appoint people. I think the process is there.
I'll vote
No.
yeah.
got to compromise
Well, we
there,
can still
Mr.
revisit.
Chairman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have to agree with you on some stuff,
I
but
really do.
I don't disagree with that,
Yeah.
but I think it's a semantics issue.
All right,
Choose your arguments.
Yeah,
If we leave it like this,
Okay.
think it's a
I-
good- yeah.
I understand the point. Okay, so section 4 is the warrant. It's actually very small section. The warrant shall be provided, let me fix that, be provided to the advisory committee by the Board of Selectmen at least 35 days before the date of the annual town meeting and 14 days before the date set for any special town meeting. When Carter was here, they had 30 days. I wanted to adjust that to 35 because of, town meetings, because of the way calendars go, can slide 5 days or whatever. I think is, you know how like Thanksgiving's on the 21st one year, and that was my reasoning for making it 35 days. And I think that should be its own section.
well, I'll weigh in. Here's my thought, because I looked at this as a bigger picture than the 35 days. And I want to take and end up giving you some background as to why I thought this. You have a present bylaw that says that you will end up having an election of officers on the 3rd Monday of the month. Okay? That can be as late as the 24th of May, to give you some perspective. That's pretty late into the month, and people will start, good weather, That's gonna be difficult to get people, and by the way, I objected to that particular one. I would like to have seen it the second Monday rather than the third, because I know you can't have the first.
22nd.
Okay. So, in this particular case, this year here, it's gonna be on the 20th. The other bylaw change that took place said that preceding the election is when you'll have your annual town meeting. So if you go back to that, that's basically 6 days before, I think it was 6 days, that's a Wednesday before. You're gonna find this interesting, because I did some projections. In less than 2 years, May 16th is the third Monday. That leaves the Wednesday before, May 10th. Okay? And this is my thinking as I go. 30 days before that puts it April 10th. Our present bylaw calls April 10th now. If we do Tony's, it's actually 5 days before. And by the way, I don't have any problems for that year. But I do have problems overall, because that day of annual election and also the annual town meeting is on a scale that's gonna slide all over. I actually changed the dates and said, okay, this particular year, the first falls, I wanna make sure,
It's a Wednesday. May first.
on a Wednesday, you can end up having the first fall on a Sunday, and that changes a whole bunch of things here, folks. You're sliding everything else. Now, who in here believes that we have done a good job of getting the warrant and somebody counting 30, 35 days, or whatever days, to make sure that that warrant comes in to us on that day? I don't think that's gonna happen. What I do see is that if it's on a fixed date, it's a fixed date every year. It doesn't make any difference when the elections are or when the annual town meeting is. Do I believe April 10th is the day? Not necessarily. It used to be March 20th. I believe that we should have as much time as we can, especially for the annual town meeting, because you're talking about the budget, which is probably more cumbersome to go through than anything else you're gonna see on special town meeting. And you're gonna have a lot of articles. I believe it should happen before April 10th. And that gives it a fixed date. His idea of having a sliding 30 or 35 days, and that's why I asked him about, is that a fixed date? And he said, well, I don't think 40 days. Well, folks, this is gonna slide, and you're gonna see this slide back and forth. I don't feel comfortable. I mean, 5 years from now, none of us are gonna be on, and who's gonna remember
I mean, speak
well,
for yourself.
maybe all of us, but who's gonna remember about the 30 or 35 days, no matter what day we put in on this thing, is to have the warrant come to us. But if we have a fixed date, I don't care if even it's a Sunday, it's a fixed date, and that will happen every year from now to prepare, I can't even say the word, perpetuality here, going on. So, I mean, having the 30 or 35 days, I have to object to that and say, I think it's better for a fixed date than to have a sliding date of so many days.
Interesting. I hadn't considered
That's,
that.
that's at least my thought. I'm throwing that out to everybody, because I looked and I saw that and I said, oh my God, in 2 years, we actually are gonna have the thing fall on April 10th, even if we only have 30 days. We don't change it to 35. Why change the thing? If we still have it on that one day, it doesn't make any difference when we have an election or annual town meeting.
Town
It's a
meeting's
fixed
on the
date.
16th, and April 11th is the
So
35 days prior.
what, if any, possibility is there to move annual town meeting? the date of it. Not this year, but,
It's fixed by bylaw.
so,
But the potentiality is there to.
that's my
Right.
concern. If at some annual town meeting, all of a sudden, it's voted upon that the bylaw is gonna change, that the annual town meeting's gonna move to April 15th, which,
Whatever,
just
yeah.
throwing out whatever.
Yeah.
Well, then an April 10th date, now we're totally, so
That's-
that's where sliding one,
That's true.
yeah.
Because you have to have it, I think it's March, April, May, or maybe it's February. But no matter what, you have to have and some towns have done this, you have to have it by June 30th.
Right.
Right.
But there is a Mass General Law that spells out the months. It might be February, March, April, and May.
So
Or-
is there a way that we could
But we
that we
could
could
move.
solve both things, where set a date, but also specify that that date has to be
Which shall be no more than
no more
30
than 35
days.
days, or, yeah, 30 days. So that
Whatever.
way we're covered in both cases.
So, I see what you're saying. So, is there a bylaw that the town meeting has to occur on a certain day in May, or is it just within?
Yes.
So I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the
It says
I think the
second
bylaw spells
Wednesday
out
or
it
the
has to
third
be in
Wednesday
May.
or something.
For
So I
us,
did it-
it says the annual town meeting, for election of town officers shall be held on the third Monday of May each year. And then further down, it says,
Yep.
That's the-
The Wednesday preceding.
So
yeah,
I-
Yeah, it's
town
Wednesday.
meeting,
Well,
except
well-
elections
Right
and
there.
such officers and determination of such matters required by law to be elected to determined by ballot shall be considered on the Wednesday preceding the election of town officers at a
Right.
time and place to be designated
That's
by
the
Board
bylaw
of
that's
Selectmen.
in effect
Yeah.
today.
So I don't dislike what you're saying, but I would want to be,
No, it's
I
Wednesday.
would wanna have a
May 18th.
fail-safe in case for whatever reason that bylaw
What's the third
changes and
Wednesday?
and the ability to move it
Third Monday
closer.
is election.
Okay.
or sooner,
But I thought
I
they
guess I should
changed
say.
it.
We could move
Well, I
our
have
town
some-
meeting to April.
It is
if we
Yeah,
wanted.
and if we set a firm date, then we're in trouble.
Well,
So that's why if we had a firm date, except in the case where it's less than,
How are
30
we in
days or
trouble
whatever.
if we have a firm date?
so, because
Because if they
if
change
for some
that-
reason they changed the bylaw so that the annual town meeting could happen
Happens
in
in
April,
It's the 15th this year.
Then that would require them to make another change.
Right.
correct. So I'm thinking,
Oh, no, because this is election.
we
the
could
third
word
Monday.
this so that we have a
Election, so
firm
it's the
date,
Wednesday before.
but also take into account, if the bylaw changes, that it's a firm date, except in the case where the annual town meeting, or the time between that firm date and the annual town meeting
Okay,
is
so
less
you're
than.
saying,
35
say,
days.
as an example, you're saying, let's put a hard date of April 1st,
Yep.
but no less than
But
35 days.
Exactly.
Because that would give us
Yeah,
a
that's
few
exactly
few
right.
extra days.
Whichever is the
We
greater
would,
amount of
we would cover
days.
both.
Yes.
And we, actually, by having it April 1st, you're only talking somewhere between 7 or 8 days difference. And oh, by the way, on the next portion of what he's got here, the 7 days, and I'm gonna take and talk to that, because that 7 days cuts into your ability
No.
as to how many days you're gonna be looking at it.
But I think
Yes,
if we take into
I-
account both, I think
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good
yeah,
with that.
I mean, do I wanna take it and end up seeing us go back to March 20th? Not on my watch today. In the future, I mean, if you look back at how this all transpired, it's the March 20th date going way back
Do we really want
in,
April Fool's Day?
in the history of this community. That was a good date because things were done
April
Ta-
1st.
on time.
Oh, no, it says.
And it was submitted, so it gave the advisory committee the maximum amount of time to review the budget. And the budget hasn't got simpler, it's got more complex over the years. And
It's
that's
35.
why I'm saying, if we can get, the more days we can get, the
Not
better
only
off we
that,
are.
The school committee has until March 31st
Yeah,
to
So that if
to
the meeting
certify
gets
their
moved to
budget.
the end of.
So if we have it-
Started
whatever,
doing that,
It doesn't have
and
to be
if
April
we
1st,
had,
it'll be,
when
they'll
it
have
was
to
March
count it out.
20th,
Yeah.
you're trying to,
It doesn't- I don't
you
know.
can't do it.
But-
you're trying to
That's
get
right, you'd have
the
to go-
warrant, and it's not complete.
Right, that's why you have to go to April, if it's
Or-
March 31st,
35 days.
and we have April 1st,
Before
they
the
have,
annual.
they've already done their budget.
Or 35.
So
whichever is
35
later.
days would be April 10th this year.
But again, you won't get the 31st to the 1st. The school committee sends that to the Board of Selectmen. How are the Board of Selectmen gonna meet? Final vote on the warrant and send it to us? Again, you'd be in the position of getting the warrant. Say the first, April 1st is on a Tuesday, so the school committee votes. What if their meeting is, their next meeting, even if they sent it on the 31st?
Yep.
And the first is on a Tuesday.
Haven't they committed to end up doing it earlier?
Doesn't mean,
They're going to try, but the law says they have until the 31st, which they have been doing for a number of years.
Well, let me tell you, this is one of the few communities that does that. Arlington actually has their school stuff
We
in
gotta go by,
January.
Right, but we don't make the school committee
No,
rules,
but I'm-
we don't,
We
yeah.
gotta go by what happens here.
okay, so let me tell you how I wrote this in,
We're gonna have to fix it.
the warrant shall be provided to the advisory committee by the Board of Selectmen on April, I'll leave the date open for now, or at least 35 days, whichever is greater, before the date set for the annual town meeting, and 14 days before the date set for any special town meeting.
I could-
April 1st are not less than 35 days?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah, and then you
Just
can
a-
take out the
So,
whichever is greater.
So, is what you're saying is that the first just isn't realistic and it should be maybe the 10th or?
I believe that's why it came to the 8th, because, and
Seventh
you're
or the
thinking,
8th,
you have to remember, when this was put in
Yeah.
place, the selectmen were meeting on Mondays.
Yeah.
So it was a little
Okay.
easier to plan it.
And-
The first is kinda unrealistic to get a final,
It sounds like it
you're
from what
still gonna
saying,
have a
yeah.
draft warrant.
So what day in
because the
April are you
school-
suggesting? 8th?
Are you suggesting the 8th or?
Here's the reality. In 2 years, like I said, it's gonna be on Monday, the 16th, the voting. And on May 10th, that's 30 days. If you go back 35 days, that actually makes it April 5th.
That's okay, then we're covered.
Then that's what I wanna make
So-
sure.
No, but what Jeff is saying is it'll be too tight, because the school committee doesn't have to provide,
So
Right, but if you do-
35 days
If
wouldn't
you
be
do
enough
April
for
5th,
the Board of Selectmen.
If you do April 5th, I think that's the earliest that you're gonna end up having the annual town meeting set by bylaws today.
No,
If
town
it changes in
meeting-
the future.
No,
that's
it's
a
not
diff-
April 5th, the town meeting's the 16th, 35 days prior to that's the 11th.
Annual town meeting in 2 years, I said,
Is on the
is on,
16th May.
on May 10th.
So
May,
that
you
would-
said
that-
16th,
16th is
would be the
voting.
election, and
Right,
so the
the six-
Wednesday
the
before the
16th
election
is
would be
the
the
election.
10th.
May 10th,
Correct.
Is the annual town meeting.
okay?
If you do 35 days,
Thought it had to be like on the 3rd or whatever.
So the election is the third Monday of the month, and then the town meeting has to be the Wednesday prior to that,
the Wednesday before.
the way it's written.
Okay, so 16th,
What-
Monday,
We're almost trying to get this in a perfect scenario, and it's,
Is that,
It's not
like,
gonna
in a
happen.
situation like that, is 35 days gonna be enough?
I
for
would
the
hope
Board of
that
Selectmen?
eventually we would get better and better and get the budget
so,
earlier.
yeah, but I
and
would
things
say.
can roll earlier. The
I
only thing
would
we're
s-
tied to is the school district.
But I would say that since we're gonna be involved in the budgeting process, a lot of the warrants aren't gonna be new to us. We should be able to, yeah, we remember that, yes, that's discussions we've already had.
Right, but that's why when the town administrator was here last week, he was lobbying for 30 days and to take away a set date.
Right.
Because he's saying this isn't really gonna be brand new. However, as a committee, we
I
feel
think-
like we need that protection.
I like the
a
idea of a
hard
set
date.
date.
Right.
After Will's discussion and everything, I do like the idea.
I
of-
try to look at the earliest time that it could happen, whether
Okay.
it be 30 or 35 days, and said, okay, this is the earliest it can be, and we're already at April 10th.
Here's an example. April 8th is the hard date that we're supposed to have the warrant. They have listed here in the countdown to town meeting. Board of Selectmen drop dead date to transmit the annual town meeting warrant and budget recommendations to the advisory committee. You fast forward to April 24th. It has the Board of Selectmen takes the final vote on the warrant. So that means, what does that mean? April 8th, they're gonna send us a draft warrant.
And that
How
could
do
change.
you- Exactly.
Yep,
So the earliest that we could have,
that's this year.
a
Yes.
pre-town meeting would be April 25th, that's a Thursday. Because we did this, it happened a couple years ago where they didn't get the warrant to us.
Oh, God.
It was a week after the hard date, after the hard date.
In,
And it's kinda hard to make recommendations on draft.
well, in your experience, have you seen drafts and then the final and
Yes, they change.
Yes.
and then how much do they change? Is it one or two articles, or does every article change? You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's a money article, that's a big deal, even if it's only one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I'm looking at level of effort versus,
There's been major changes as far as monetary on articles, from draft to the actual
Well,
ending.
like last year, with the school thing,
The draft had no numbers on it last year.
well, but even still, they planned on one thing, and then when they voted, and their budget was, I forget what it was, 300,000, 260,000 more than what was in the draft, then there was all kinds of changes
so why
made.
are they waiting
They're
till
all
the
different-
24th to have the vote on the final
Because state law says they have until the 31st. And they
of
have,
April?
no, the school district has until March 31st.
No, but why is the Board of Selectmen waiting till the 24th of April to vote?
If you wish to know that, you would have to be a selectman.
That's what's on the schedule that we have, that countdown.
I'm
That's
sorry,
what's on the
because,
schedule. We don't have that
His,
information.
his statement to you is the same statement I got from Carter when I asked the question about options for,
Oh, I remember that.
yes.
I don't know.
Oh, God,
Because
love
they
it.
have the advisory committee public hearing on the budget to be determined.
Well, that's good, because they want us to set our date. Well, annual
Oh,
town meeting
God.
this year is the
This is
15th?
unbelievable.
Yes.
That's the times,
So,
And it's April 25th.
can't believe
We
so.
or-
can't do our recommendations
You-
until
you-
we get that
you're
final
not seeing
warrant, though.
everything.
April
What's happening in this
25th or
community.
May
I
2nd,
hear
and
and
still
see
gives
an
us a
awful
few
lot.
days.
I mean, I wouldn't want to get it the 24th and then have the town,
The meeting
a
the
town
25th.
meeting the 25th. I'd want some time to look at it.
That's what we would get. Because the warrant we get at the beginning of April will be a draft.
I understand that, but how,
That's why we're trying to fix it.
right, so we have to have.
So they're actually,
town
in this
meeting-
year here, if they're gonna get us the final warrant is gonna be voted by them on the 24th, they have violated the actual bylaw that's in effect today, that says on the 10th.
Yes.
Well,
I mean,
the way
and
around that
they
is.
inherently
draft or
violate the bylaws consistently.
So should we change this section 4 that we're looking at to say the final warrant shall be provided to the advisory committee by the Board of Selectmen at least 35 days, blah, blah, blah? Rather than just the warrant, because it doesn't specify, like Tony just said, draft or final.
Right.
And,
So they're not technically violating because it doesn't specify in the current laws, draft or final.
Good
They're
point.
giving us a draft.
Good point.
In fact, I have a draft warrant that I got at the meeting the other
It
night.
does, if it said the draft, they wouldn't be, but it says the warrant. And let's see,
But it's just an implication that it's the
Right.
final, the last and final.
Well,
I read that
there's always
as
a
just the
spin,
warrant.
let's put it this way, I've seen too many spins about
Right.
data.
That's all I'm saying too, and that if we wanna make it crystal clear, there's no reason we can't
'Cause
add in the final warrant.
We've heard this from our administrator, well, you've had a draft of the warrant since this time. We didn't get the final one because there's a whole bunch of changes on it.
So I can only go by yours and Jeff's experience without experience this firsthand of the changes. We kinda have to go by what you guys said. So I put section 4 of the warrant, the final warrant shall be provided to the advisory committee by the Board of Selectmen on April 8th, but not less than 35 days before the date set for the annual town meeting and 14 days before the date set for any special town meeting.
Should we change it not not fewer than 14 days before the date set for any special town meeting as well, just to throw that padding in there, that clarity.
Tony, can you read that one back again to us? If you would, please.
Cause or not less than.
Yeah.
Can you want that, the whole thing again?
Yes, if you could, please.
Sure. Okay, so it's section 4 of the warrant, we'll decide whether we're gonna title it or not. The final, should I put town warrant?
Yes.
Town, spelling. Okay, the final town warrant shall be provided to the advisory committee by the Board of Selectmen on April 8th, but not less than 35 days before the date set for the annual town meeting, and not less than 14 days before the date set for any special town
See,
meeting.
that would cover the 2 years from now, because it would be, instead of April 8th, it would be April 5th.
Yeah.
Because that would be the minimum. I like that. That gives us a little bit of.
And again, it's like, I don't think that we're asking for anything, we're just asking, since we have to be the town advisors, the advisors to the town, is we need sufficient time to review the warrant to make proper recommendations.
It may take a lot of discussion on some stuff.
Okay, so, Jeff, in the thing you sent, you had it a little different. I put, the warrant in section 4, and section 5 was, kind of our duties, because the warrant is really the key, and then everything else is a byproduct of that. So, do we wanna vote on that, section 4?
I'll make a motion to vote on the section as read, indicating April 8th or 35 days prior, getting the final warrant, not the draft, the final warrant to us.
I'll second that.
All right.
And as you can see how I'm writing this, you will see all the changes real time when I send it out.
Thank you.
All right, anything, we're pretty much on agreement on that, right?
Yep.
Okay, on that section, motion, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I wanna go. And I had that, what did I do with it?
Today's the 17th, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so section 5,
When did he send that?
which was Jeff's section 4 and his.
Here it is.
So this is what I changed it to, and then we'll discuss it. It shall be the duty of the committee to consider various warrant articles, including citizen petitions thereon. Said committee reserves the right to not provide comment on citizen petitions. The advisory committee shall report thereon to the community at least 7 days before the date set of the annual town meeting, and at least 4 days set before for any special town meeting, with such explanations and suggestions as they deem most useful to the community. The advisory committee shall review the annual town budget and the general conduct of town affairs. The committee shall consider in open public meeting the detailed expenditures proposed for each town agency, and may confer with representatives of any town agency in connection with its review and consideration. So kind of, in a nutshell,
The only thing that I have to end up saying is this, is that when you look at the 7 days prior for our recommendations, that actually cuts into whatever dates that you just had in the previous section. It actually cuts it down, so it actually cuts down our time that we actually have to have the recommendations. Do I believe it should be 7? No, I believe it should probably be something between 7 and 2, if they wanna have it a couple days before. I think somewhere around 4 or 5 days might be a little bit better.
I think it's protection for when the dates, like you say, didn't line up just right. And let's say the date that, like, our drop dead date turns out to be a Thursday, and we meet on Thursdays, and we get it on, or the drop dead date is like a Friday, so we get it that Friday. We're gonna need a full 7 days because we don't meet again until that Thursday.
Yeah.
Unless there's provision where we have to call a special meeting for us to convene for that explicit purpose.
Right, because that, for that 7 days is that our recommendations. That doesn't say that we haven't had a pre-town meeting to discuss all of this
Right,
and have the discussion and actually start our recommendations. We have to have some time between the pre-town meeting and whenever we're going to have that final
right.
thing, so it's gonna be close.
Right.
I mean, getting this room at times, if it falls on the day a selectmen's meeting is for a pre-town meeting, we are not going to get this meeting and let people come in and let the folks see what type of discussion we have. I think that's a big issue with me, is I would like to have as much discussion at a pre-town meeting, pro or con, doesn't make any difference, and we actually hash it out, a good hashing out of what we think about that, and actually break it down so that we can end up saying, okay, as an example, somebody's budget. We've gone through the budgeting process. Okay, we've gone through the budgeting process with the selectmen, but folks, you can ask all the questions you want, but that doesn't mean that we have to agree at that particular time what that budget is.
So-
What if we heard something at that meeting, even though we asked all the questions, and we come to pre-town meeting and saying, okay, they want $1,000 for a ping pong table, I'm just using some obscure thing, and we go, whoa, they don't need a ping pong table, they need a pool table, and the pool table is more. We give them more. Or they want a pool table and we go the other way and said, no, they don't, I mean, that actually can end up happening, whether that's, I'm using really absurd things rather than saying, okay, a plow versus
Right.
this type of plow. We actually ran into that one time because of our chairman. We ran into that about a certain type of plow
So-
for
okay.
a truck.
So let me ask you a question
Yes.
before we talk about plows.
Yeah.
So it says that the advisory committee shall report thereon to the community at least 7 days before the date. How do we report to the community? What's the mechanism to report to
Okay,
the community?
the methods that we have used in past is this. And this is where we have done well in the past, and since this website is not user-friendly, and we're supposed to get one that's better, we put it on, number one, we put it on the advisory website, our recommendations,
Yep.
number one. Number two, we've given them to the town clerk, and she's put them on, she usually has the warrant
Yep.
or whatever, and
Okay.
she's put them on.
Okay.
Or we've given them to, and this, I think they only happen once in all the time. We've actually sent it to the selectman's office, and they put it on the webpage as a
So-
separate,
Okay, all right. So we have a means to get it to the community.
yes.
How many days before the town meeting do you really believe they need to,
How,
the
if
town
it's
needs it?
effective, probably 5 days.
Don't change 7 to 5.
I mean, if I was to receive something and I knew and this is me talking, okay?
Okay,
If I knew that the annual town meeting was coming up 5 days before, I might look at it,
Deb,
or
do you have a-
less.
we cannot
Anything
do,
more than that, I probably wouldn't look.
we cannot do anything other than 2 days before the meeting without changing Article 2 of
Yeah.
the current bylaws. Article 2, Section 6.
That's correct.
Said committee shall, after due consideration of the subject matter of articles, report thereon to the town meeting in writing such recommendations as it deems best for the interests of the town and its citizen. Copies of the report of the advisory committee shall be made available to the voters at least 2 days before town meeting and at all town meetings.
All town
So if
meetings.
we put in the advisory committee bylaw, at least 7 days, this one says at least 2,
Right.
we're saying,
We're okay.
7. It's, and this is
Or
all
even if
thing,
we change it to
Where is
5,
that
we're
one?
okay. If we make it less than 2, then we have an issue, right?
Right. If we make it less than 2, it's an issue.
We can
Yeah,
give
at
them,
least
we
2.
can, if it says we have to give it to them within 2 days, but if we give it to them within 5 or 7, we're okay. If you give it to them sooner.
The only thing I was gonna point out is if, and maybe this hasn't been a problem in the past, but if the town meeting's on a Wednesday and you're giving them 5 days, 2 of those are over the weekend. So if you give them, is it 5 business days, or if you give them 7 days, it's
That's always
giving
a
them
good question.
the end of the week before, and then those other 2
It'd
days.
be 5
prior-
days, period. It wouldn't be 5 business
yeah.
days.
And they're not here working on the weekends prior to town meeting, are they?
No.
No.
Oh,
Okay. No, I just,
No, that's a good
something to
point.
consider, I think.
yeah.
So then that almost says it has to be at least 6.
But
Right,
if
in case it is.
if you choose 5 days, it's gonna be on the
Yeah, 'cause if
website
It's a Wednesday.
at that
5
particular
days
time.
would
It
be
doesn't make any
Saturday.
difference.
They're not gonna put it on a Saturday, then.
Well, they're not
we
gonna put
miss-
it on a Friday either, so it would be 7.
So,
Then leave it at 7.
1, 2,
Well,
3.
if
4
we
and 5
get
would
the
be the Friday
ability,
before.
if the committee gets the ability to post on the website,
We've satisfied
then we don't,
Well, and you know what, we could change it to 2 or 5 or whatever days, because if we have the ability to do it, which they've said we have, these wouldn't be effective until after town meeting.
right.
So we would go with the old bylaw,
right.
so then I think,
So then this would be for next year where everything's
Yeah.
supposed to be active and we're supposed to have
right,
access and
And then, like I said, we could, if we could post it,
That's what he said.
whenever, I mean, anybody can, we could just say, hey, you're really computer savvy, this is what we did, put that on the web, or,
Right.
Is it, for
whoever
the-
could do it,
sorry, is it
however they decide.
for the purpose of doing that booklet that they did this year? Because that would need time to be put together and printed, right?
Well, there again, we would have to do it, and if I was,
so we may do it at a meeting, like we did, for the special town meeting.
Yep.
And then our recommendations may be more than 7 or 10 days. It's just that we need to get it out to the community 5, 7, whatever
Okay.
days before the meeting.
I understand.
so if we did I'm just looking, if we did our pre-town meeting on May 2nd, and we leave the meeting with our recommendations. May 8th is when they wanna have the voter's guide
that's 6 days.
printed to do it. Now, depending on what time we get out here, and I go by what, I've done, because I've done several of them. If I go home and finish it all out, send it out for y'all to read and see if you catch any errors or anything, and then technically, it should probably be done at another meeting, open meeting, and officially vote on it, rather than doing it on the fly.
Well, I think if you vote on it, the verbiage at the meeting, you're doing it, sending it out and just making clerical errors. You're not making
Those aren't
substantive.
hard changes, those
yeah.
are like a
You're
comma
making
instead of a
you're making
period.
administrative
And then
changes, like,
send
you
it-
have 2 periods
And
here.
then
or whatever.
send it electronically to them.
Yep.
It just means whoever's doing it, you gotta scoot, and, you gotta have a day and just do it. It doesn't take long, it's just like now I have a format, that I can just go in and just,
I think the
cut
bigger
stuff out
concern
and
is
get
just to make sure that they have it in time for what they need, so we need to fulfill that minimum so that they can print their guide, but knowing that in the future, we'll be able to do it much faster.
but nothing says that it has to be in that guide. It just says, we have to have a report and provide it to town meeting. It doesn't have to be in the voter's guide.
Okay, so
I mean,
Here's an interesting thing, and that's a good point. If you look at this year, the annual town meeting will be on the 15th, because the 20th is when we have elections. 7 days before that is actually what? The 8th. And they're gonna have their booklet out. So that, it's not going to be in a booklet per se. We can't make that date. Even if we enacted this bylaw today about the 7 days.
Okay, so I think in this,
The 7 days
Section
before
5,
the
the only
town meeting, no?
thing
Right,
that's
7
at-
days before, the 15th is actually the 8th.
Right.
so I think the only thing in this section that we're considering is at least 7 days, should that 7 be changed to a different number?
Yeah. I like the 5 days. This gives us
Okay.
a
If
little
you
more
leave-
time.
But if
Happy
you
with
leave
5.
the 2, you can always do it earlier, you just can't do it later.
Right.
So if you tie
Well, a
yourself
special town
into,
meeting says 4 days, Jeff.
you know,
So, I mean, we could change them both to 2. And if you get it sooner, you get it sooner. I mean, there's nothing saying that if it doesn't get in the voter guide, that we can't print out our recommendations. Article 1, this is our recommendation.
True story,
I know what you're gonna say. I know all about this.
about, when we
Yes,
printed it,
yes.
and we got in
I know.
trouble. We
I'm
got
aware
in
of
trouble for printing it and putting it out there.
I think normally before the annual town meeting, more days are given to have the information out to the public because it's generally a bigger warrant and it's more material because the budget's involved. So I wouldn't like to see them both changed to 2 days.
I think the annual
Although-
town meeting, 5 days, I like the idea of 5 days.
At a minimum,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that because it gives us time to get it out. There's not saying, you know, if something drastic happened within that 5 days, we do get an opportunity to speak on each article
Right.
as a committee,
On
and
the
if
town
we
meeting
wanted to
floor,
change
yeah.
it, and, you know, with the right explanation of, we had originally voted this way, however, new information came to light, blah, 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 blah.
I agree with that. If something else comes up,
I mean, it would have to be really drastic, and the warrant should be final, so nothing should really come up.
we're allowed, by the way, we're allowed to actually, if we have a recommendation and we're polled by the moderator, we can actually caucus right then and there on the floor, all the members, and we've done this, by the way, for a recommendation on the floor as to what we thought about an article.
Yeah,
And right
and if
there.
somebody, the case in point is if somebody chose to make an amendment to an article,
Correct.
then, you know, if we'd have the right to at least ask questions and whatnot to make sure we could make a concerted
Right, and then we tell the
recommendation.
moderator, we're gonna end up polling the members as to what our
So
recommendation is.
I changed it to 5 days, left the special town meeting 4 days. I think we're just killing this one.
It's cutting into your time for special town meetings. It's probably, special town meetings,
Special town meetings are, we don't have them every year, and
well, you only have 14 days that you're gonna get the warrant, so 4 days, it's cutting into,
I thought we had plenty of time this year.
I think there's plenty of room to say that it will be out to the public earlier than that, especially knowing that after this May's annual town meeting, there should be an active website that's up to date, that's easy for every committee, including ours, to access and to put our own
Hopefully,
information up.
'cause we have
Hopefully,
plans-
yes.
We're thinking sunshine, Will. It's gonna happen.
So
We have
I'd
a
like to,
Facebook page
I'd
now,
like to
too.
make a
I'm
motion.
glad you're very positive.
Very positive.
I've
Plus,
seen,
we do have a Facebook page where we can post links
Right.
and get everybody back to the town website as well.
Right.
Or post these public documents, once they are voted on by us. These are public
That's right.
documents to post them in that forum as well.
Well, I mean, we count on, you have to count on it, one special town meeting every year. Because unless the state really gets their
Okay.
act together and, you know, has a
Okay.
final budget by.
But like I said, I thought going through the process this year, I thought we had plenty of time.
I
Yeah.
mean, we generally do, I just
Best case is,
don't
is,
want to time
best case
myself
is
into
actually
it.
three meetings, town meetings. Worst case is, like we had one year, we had five or six. And it blew
Okay,
our
I like
budget.
five.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that the only change in section 5 is the changing the word 7 to 5 days before annual town meeting.
I second.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not really happy with this.
Did anyone second that?
I did.
Jeff, we're gonna take a vote?
He's reading.
Oh, yeah, if everybody's, I'm sorry,
So a motion is made that the only word,
Got a motion and a second.
and second, that the only word changing is from 7 days to 5 days.
okay. Anybody got anything else? All right, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
No, but. for a
I know
bunch of-
why you,
For a bunch of reasons,
yep,
so.
and I know why, and
That's okay, we can visit
I
it
have to agree
again.
with you, but I wanna compromise and
We
get,
can visit it again.
It can
at
be
least move forward
revisited.
here.
It's preliminary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's preliminary, we're gonna vote on this again.
Screw 'em, I compromised enough.
Well,
No, I just, that's,
I mean, this is really
I'm going
just,
with
are we getting enough
the will of the
information
committee,
out to
it's
the
just-
town? All right, section 6. In the discharge of its duties, I'm gonna change that to the advisory committee. The advisory committee shall have free access to all books of record and accounts, bills and vouchers on which money has been or may be paid by the town, from the town treasury. The advisory committee may require the town administrator, board of selectmen, or any other town agency to furnish it with such additional public information as it may deem necessary to assist in its review of the warrant and the proposed town budget. Officers, boards, and committees of the town shall, upon request, furnish said committee with facts, figures, and any other pertinent information pertaining to their several activities.
no secret meeting in public meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll make it known, so that Carter can end up hearing me.
Hey, let's not get personal.
Oh, he
I'm trying
views
to
this
refrain.
meeting.
Okay.
I'm trying
He
to
views
refrain.
his meeting, and I mean, I don't blame him. He can-
Okay,
We're a public
All
board,
right,
I
hold
mean,
on, let's,
and here's my thoughts, is that
okay, section
in the
6.
past, we've had problems with the treasurer or accountant not making a full accounting to the town on certain items. This is the way you've got it written there, it gives us the opportunity to ask the treasurer for a breakdown as to who gets paid how much, so that we can end up judging that when we do the budget. And
There's no time
by
frame here
doing that,
either.
it becomes a public record.
Yes.
So if they don't wanna report it, we can.
That's not the intent of what I certainly put there.
I know what your intent is, but by having that wording, it gives us the opportunity to do that.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, it does.
Let me look at what I wrote. Because I'm not sure I changed this a whole lot. Child free books, Danny.
Was there discussion before about a time frame
Yeah.
when the town administrator, board of selectmen, or any other town agency to furnish it with such additional public information? Is there a time frame for
We
that?
should put a time frame because we've asked for a time frame.
Right. Right.
So in the first line where it says shall have free access within X number of days
I think
to all.
when he spoke, he said something about 4 or 5 days.
5 days.
Five
was-
Business days,
5 business days.
which is really, if you ask
7
on
days.
a Thursday, if we ask today for that,
Yeah.
we're not gonna see it until a week from Monday. Because there's only 4 business days in
Right.
town.
Right.
So
Monday
I-
through Thursday.
I
So if
think it
we
should
ask
be-
on a Thursday, we're waiting until that.
I think it should be days, not business days.
I agree, however, I have been present with discussions had about information, and it's always very clear that it's business days.
Because if it's 5 days, I can send them an email tomorrow,
Right.
and
You won't receive it.
Tuesday, it's 5 days, where's my stuff?
Right.
Well, there's nobody here for 3 days to
Right.
process it or to take it. I
Okay.
do sometimes get an answer like from Holly, on a Saturday or something, like when the email
Yeah.
was not working.
Good point.
She sent me an email,
Mm-hmm.
so she apparently checks her email
Here and
on,
there, yeah.
on non-work days. But I got an answer like on a Sunday. But if you say
Okay.
5 days, can say, well, yeah, it says 5 days, but there's nobody here to officially receive your request
say what it
until
says.
Monday.
This is the
Okay, let
original.
me,
So if it's business days,
Public
which is
information, people's salaries are not
more
public.
problem.
Okay, so Will, I'm gonna kinda,
Yeah, in this day and
Here's-
electronic age, there's
I
no
know,
reason that, if
Using-
books
you-
are up to date,
I know, yeah.
there's no reason why you can't have it
Yep.
in 4
using
days or less.
that scenario, Jeff, okay? If you were to put in a request tomorrow, and you gave them business days, and then you said, and 5
know.
business days,
It would be actually 2 weeks.
it would be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it should be less than 5 days, it should be 4 business days,
Yes.
which would make it the Thursday, if we asked for it today,
Yeah.
you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we should have it on Thursday of next
So
week.
then we should,
Okay,
we would
all
want to
right.
specify not more than 4
right,
business
all
days?
right, so first of all, Will, to counter what you were saying, I don't agree with you, because it says to furnish with such additional public information. People's salaries are not public information.
Yes, they are.
It's the spending of public money.
It's
It
a spending
is.
of public money.
That's,
So-
the DOR even says that, it's been addressed
Well,
several.
but I don't think it's our responsibility to publish people's salaries.
It's been published in the annual town
I know it
report
has up until-
a few years ago.
Right, I know that.
Even the schools teach salaries.
Well, why,
Yep.
who stopped doing that?
This administration. And you have one selectman that has said that they don't wanna take and end up having that
But
posted.
it is, it's the accounting of spending of public money. It just is.
There's not too many communities that don't let you
Now, I don't
know.
want,
Okay, so let's
I
not go
don't
there.
want social security numbers and
No.
stuff like I have
No.
in a book at home.
So
I mean, everybody
let's
that
go
was a member
back,
of this committee
so
has
let's
it.
go back to the number of business days or whatever, where does that go and what's the answer? So in addition, in the discharge of its duty, the advisory committee shall have free access to all books, records, accounts, blah, 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 blah,
So what if
blah.
we did, shall have free access within 4 business days?
For 4 business days.
Access to all,
I would say not more than 4 business days.
Right, I like that.
yeah.
Because then if somebody wanted to say, hey, I can let you in on Friday, or whatever, or I'll be there Monday, meet me then, that's only, 1 business day.
Yeah,
So we'll gladly take it,
Yeah, yeah.
but we also wanna put that upper limit on it.
right.
So it'll say, shall have
mean, we
free
may ask a
access not
question that
more
could be
than 4
answered.
business days. to all blah, 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 blah.
We may ask a question that can be answered, like you said, in one day, or it may take somebody a couple of days.
Well, hopefully, as everything comes up to speed and is modernized and
So
on the systems that are being created here, it should be very easily accessible and able to be
Correct.
pushed back very instantaneously.
So Jeff, the only things I added to this from what you originally gave me was the advisory committee may require the town administrator, board of selectmen, or other town agency to furnish it with such additional public information it may deem necessary to review the warrant and the proposed budget. That's what I added.
And just to make I don't wanna beat the dead horse, but as far as the salaries goes, in the budget, you can go online and see this, the salaries of all the department heads.
Okay.
So what's, why is all employees aren't out there?
So
It's just-
here's
It's,
my thought on people's salaries. I don't know day to day what these people do. Okay, how does it compare to markets? There's so many different things that can go into salaries that I don't think we would have all the information to say that person makes too much. What if we find a person doesn't make enough? So I'm not really interested in people's salaries.
It affects the budget, that's what we're looking
But
at.
I understand it does.
so,
I understand it does, and they have to justify that when they're doing their budget. So if
But-
they justify it during the budgeting process, I'm not sure there's an issue,
department head salaries are available.
okay?
It's in the book and it's online.
But
But
department
all
head,
town
department head
employees'
X,
salaries-
let's just take, the chief of police, he makes X dollars, I don't even know what he makes, I don't really even care.
It's in his contract.
Okay,
in his contract.
it's in his contract, but whatever he makes, okay, I would wanna know, in order to do it, you'd have to have a comparison of like-sized communities, like-sized forces, but then there's other factors as such as potential crime rate in town and all that. So, I'm not sure that we have the time to go through each person's salary to see if it's appropriate for them. So if they come up with a budget and the town accepts the budget,
So
In the case of, if you're gonna bring up the police chief, in the case of police
no,
chief.
no, I'm not bringing I'm just,
No, I'm
I
saying
use
you're
Chief
using-
Bennett as an
you're using
example, but
that
I'm
as a
not.
scenario. It would be the fact that he's getting that much salary, it doesn't make any difference about the crime rate. What if they wanna give him a 10% salary increase on the next contract? Would you, and supposedly, they have looked at other communities, and they have not done that. They have not, this community has not taken, like Phillipston, they actually went out and did a survey for all their employees, the set salary, actually salaries for those particular jobs. In other words, and you have job descriptions in business.
Okay, so then
I mean, I
think what our charge would be to do is if you think someone is getting a raise, then it's our job to go to the Board of Selectmen and say, can you please explain the factors that went into giving this person, where a normal raise would have been of X%, but you're giving them this percent and why it warrants it, period. I don't know.
Town meetings providing the money, and Templeton did do they spent, it was 10 grand on a wage and compensation plan study. And they had all steps laid out, and when I was on the personnel board,
Right, that was years ago.
but the fact, you said this community has never done it, they did it, and they had all these steps laid out, and people would get to that step, and they were supposed to get a raise in pay.
And they
The only
wouldn't.
fact was, they couldn't get it, cause there was no money provided so they had a plan, and no funding source, no
Right.
funding, plan to make it happen. So it was useless.
Yep.
But they paid a consulting firm to go out and look at various communities of the same size and compare to say, what a conservation agent made, what did the treasurer make, all around.
So,
What did highway people make?
We don't have that
all
today.
that.
Lee, you were gonna say something?
Well, so working in the private sector, I hear what you're saying. I deal with people's salaries all the time.
Yeah.
It's a very,
As a
It's a very
manager, you
secure
do
right.
that, right?
but we're not explicitly calling out salaries. though.
Right.
You're saying public information, and if it so happens that salaries are public information, then this isn't saying that we're going to expose anything. This is just saying that the committee would have the right to request that information if deemed necessary for.
And I'm okay with,
Yeah.
I'm
So
okay with that
I understand.
point. Yeah.
I understand being uncomfortable with it because, yeah, just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I understand their viewpoint too.
It's just,
Understood. Yep.
Okay, so the way you said that, Lee, I understand that,
Yeah.
okay? I'm just,
No,
so do we have any more comments on that section? I just changed it, advisory committee, and then not more than 4 business days to get all that stuff?
Okay.
yeah, no more than four
Yeah.
business days to receive it.
Not more than 4 business days, shall have free access.
So we could have a meeting
Change that a little
like
bit, Amy, help me
tonight
with this.
and ask for it,
Shall have
and
free
I
access.
send it out, they'll have it Monday, we should have an answer by Thursday.
Yeah. I guess the only question I have there, not to get into minutia, but if you say within 4 business days, so if you make the request Monday
No more than
morning,
4 business days,
does it
not
mean
more.
it has to be by the end of Thursday? So that,
Well, it's a business day, so if we don't get it before they conduct their business day, which here I believe is 4 PM.
Yeah, right?
so
So
that,
if we don't get it by 4 PM on Thursday, that's the end of this
It's
business
COB.
day.
so if you dropped it off Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, would that wording still imply that we should get it Thursday? Or because you didn't get it
Friday.
in at the beginning?
Interesting, it
except-
would be
It
Monday.
would be
You're
Monday,
saying-
because Friday, right.
Oh.
So-
I see
Well,
what
then I
you're saying.
guess
So again-
we'd have to split those hairs when we come to it.
Yeah. So, not to get overly technical, but just. But
No,
I'm
that's a
good
It's
with it.
good though,
That's a good
because
point.
that's this kind of stuff everybody's
It
gonna
would be
think of as
imperative
well.
to, if we voted on something, to ask for it at a meeting, and our meetings are generally before,
Yeah.
is to make sure that we end up putting that out either that Friday or on the weekend, so that they
Exactly, that's-
receive it on a
First
Monday.
thing Monday
That's exactly
morning,
the point.
yes.
So it's
So-
That's okay.
emailed or it's in
The onus falls on us to make sure
Yeah.
that timing happens.
So assuming, yeah, so if we go with that mindset, then I'm good with it. It was just, again, getting really technical with the wording, sorry.
Okay.
No, that's a good point, though, because some people will say, okay, if it's 1 o'clock, 4 business days,
Is not until the following
yeah,
Monday.
is it full
Cause you've
business
gotta give me a
days?
full business day,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I think's fair,
Yep,
so, okay. All right,
so I'll make a motion to accept section 6 with the changes that we just discussed. Again, this document will go out to
Changing it to
everybody.
4 business days.
Yes.
I'll second
No
that.
more than 4 business days.
okay.
I'll second that.
Not more, but that wasn't right.
All right, nothing else? On the motion, Tony,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
okay. Section 7 should be easy.
It's not,
I was just gonna say, that's cute that you think that, Tony.
and I'll tell you why.
Well, wait a minute, I haven't
Okay,
read it
let's-
yet, Will.
Let's read it first.
Okay.
You can't tell me why, because you don't know what I'm gonna say.
Yep,
It shall be the duty of the advisory committee to make an annual report of its doings with recommendations relative to financial matters and the conduct of town business to be contained in the annual town report, sections 1 through 4, 5.
Oh, no, those are, that's all
okay.
other citations.
Okay, that's all it said. Okay. So it's basically saying we put a blurb in the town, in the annual budget book. Not budget book, but the town meeting book.
The annual
that people
report,
getting, the annual
The report's
report.
different, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the annual report.
which I gotta put together here in the next few
well,
weeks.
one of the things is that if you look at the present bylaw, basically it says your doings. Your doings, you're spending town money. You're spending town money for expenses. You're spending town money for, the emergency reserve. We should be reporting how we spent that to the community. We should be accountable to how we did it. They don't necessarily see that from the accountant or the treasurer, but that is why the present bylaw states that we have an accounting of our doings. Our doings are spending the town's money. And also how we did it.
So,
And also, in the past, and I know you don't like the past, Tony, or how.
it's not that I don't like it, Will, that is not true,
Well,
because
I-
I have learned an awful lot from you by bringing up some things.
Right, but we used to take and also present our membership as to what boards or committees
So I
they were
don't
on.
disagree with what you're saying.
And, you know, some length of term, so people knew who we were, how long we were going to be on, so they had a chance to get a hold of us, and what other committees or boards we were on. So the three things that we've reported in the past is membership, who, what, where, and how long each member is on, how much money we spent on,
We could spell that out
Whatever.
here. I got no problem. Why don't you let's back up, find the right place to insert it, and we'll insert it.
okay,
And then I'll read it and we'll vote on it.
okay. And I'm just saying, I'd like to see some of the wording of also the doings, not only finances. The finances covers, to me, it sounds more like you want to take and end up talking about our recommendations that we already have made at annual town meetings versus what we're talking about at the end of the year.
Okay, with regards to what we put into the annual town report, the message out of the selectman's office, and it gives a format, all reports must be sent in electronic format only, Times New Roman, 12 font, single spaced. Note, this office reserves the right to edit reports received so they fit properly, have the correct format, and look their best for the final report.
Here's another area, and I was gonna bring it up after
We
you
can't do
changed it, is one particular year, we had 70 end-of-year transfers.
It's fiscal 16.
Huh?
Fiscal 16.
Oh, thank you. And 16. We reported on what our vote was for each of those. And some got rejected, and it actually brought up the amount of votes that we had. And we reported on all of that as to how we did the transfers or whatever. The administration saw fit to take and end up cutting that all out. It wasn't a reporting of this, and I mean, we spent a lot of time going over the end-of-year transfers and having discussions, some of which we actually cut out. I mean, and they did. The feeling was at that particular committee, and this was a majority of that committee, that the selectmen and the administration had no business editing our report.
So, I would venture to guess that most townspeople could care less if we had, if we did 70 transfers, what each one of them are.
It's not
There's
really
some people
relevant
care.
though, because we're supposed to
Right.
tell them that, and if it's in electronic format, and it's all being conveyed electronically, there's no
All right,
reason to limit
so,
space.
so I have a report of its membership with date appointed and term.
Yep.
Okay, what's next?
Our doings, which was
Okay, but you wanna spell doings out? You wanna spell out what those doings are?
spending the town's money for expenses, spending the town's money
Expenditures.
for emergency reserve, and
Okay,
spend,
hold on, slow down, I can't
Yeah.
type that fast.
okay,
Expenditures,
yep.
okay, what else besides
Town
expenditures?
reserve.
Town,
Emergency reserve,
town emergency reserve,
and end-of-year transfers. Because here's the key to the end-of-the-year transfers. If the town voted a certain amount of money and the end-of-year transfers countermanded a vote of the town as to how much money for something, we cannot override the town. So in reporting what we did, people get to see we're not countermanding monies for things that they did not vote for. Because you could have an end-of-year transfer that moved money from one department to another, and that department
Just with
did something
recommendations relative to
and
the
spent money
versus
that the
the
town did not vote on. That's not legal. I wanna
No,
show,
because
I
he
wanna,
still
I
wants to
wanna
editorialize.
take and show the town
That's-
what we did legally
Still
on,
wants to
and
editorialize
transferring
on
their
this.
money.
That's what
Does
he's
he?
saying, with
Okay.
recommendations relative to financial matters. Will, are you saying that you, in this document at the end of the year,
Yes,
that you believe we should reserve the right to state how we voted and why we voted in this manner for something like an end of the year transfer,
Right.
to editorialize, to say at the bottom, transfer was deemed inappropriate due to annual town meeting vote for blah, 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 for example.
we actually did that. We said that we voted against it because of this,
Okay.
and then when it was.
Okay, so I just wanna get the
represented
words
to
in
No,
us-
no, I'm just
When it
saying
was-
if that's what you wanna make
Right,
clear
and when it
in
was
this.
represented to us in a different manner, from a different source, because of the way the sourcing was, we didn't agree with this, from one source to another.
Okay,
It
okay,
was-
so,
it
so
was-
how
it
do I
was-
put that in words that we put it in a report?
Okay, and it shouldn't be edited, I mean, that's my feelings.
That doesn't give them the right to, what Jeff read does not give them right to edit it. It gives them the right to change the format, but not edit the
It
content.
says edit to
It
make sure
said
it fits the
edit.
space.
They reserve the right to edit it.
It says edit,
Does it?
yeah.
Yes,
So if they're on, well, then they should determine how much space we have, so we can,
and here's,
Because in 16, when it was,
well, if we give them something
like
with 4
6
pages, that, I mean, that's money.
that's the report of the committee, and they have no right to
Right.
I
only
agree with
print
you.
one page. They have
Can
no right.
we state here
The
that an
taxpayers pay for that annual report,
that
it's
an
required by law.
unedited version can be obtained directly from the committee?
Yeah, we could.
Like a unique, separate document. So
Right.
we have to submit, and we have to follow these rules to submit for this paper that you're talking about with the Times New Roman and all that
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
We have to conform to that guideline for that. However, there's nothing that says we can't say right in here if,
We could
I
put it
don't
on the
know, Joe
website.
Smith wants to get an unedited version in print,
yeah,
they can
Yeah, I like
come
that
to
idea.
town
The
hall and
reason-
request it, so that if someone wants to sit and read
Yeah.
all of Will's thoughts about every 70 transfers, you know?
Okay,
it
so,
wasn't just my
so let-
thoughts.
let
it
me
was-
No,
get the
no, I
words.
know, I know.
Do you wanna type the words? Do you know what you're
And,
saying?
and the reason I say this is,
I-
folks,
Yeah, I like what you're saying, though, is that we could even quote the fact that the
the
Board
reason
of
I
Selectmen.
say this is, it came out to around 5.5 pages, okay? 5.5,
Okay.
6 pages.
Jeez,
And let me just give you some background as to what really happened, okay? They edited. We had a selectman that was
not hard
a
to
sitting
figure.
selectman. He was on the advisory board. He said he never issued a report more than 1 page.
Okay,
History
well,
shows that he had multiple, as a chairman, he put out multiple reports of 3 pages. So, and
Okay,
his comments were not accurate.
okay, all right, so far I have the, annual report with membership
for
with
one, it's
date
good for
appointed
another.
and term, expenditures, town emergency reserves, end of year transfers. What else do we want?
Do you wanna put something like, and any other official
That's what I was
business?
thinking.
Yeah. Because there's sometimes you put verbiage as
Any
to,
other
Uh,
official,
we actually put down the first year we were on, we actually had an attendance rate of better than 95% of all meetings. I mean, we
Pertinent
summed them all up,
Any
and
other
we had very high attendance. I mean,
official
there was not,
pertinent business?
people were, I mean, that's a significant thing
Okay,
for
so
any committee.
I would just
Me.
say official business,
Well,
cause you
yeah,
never know what
Why
might be
call it
us
official?
voting on
How about
another.
business? How about just
Okay.
business? Any other pertinent would fit, actually, if we're just kind of catch-all.
Okay. With recommendations relative to financial matters.
That's why I don't try to type anything as the meeting's going, because I just can't.
Well-
Take that stuff out and then just say to be contained in the annual town
And I'll-
report.
That's what'll
Okay.
come
Take
out.
out
No,
that
no,
with
no. So,
recommendations relative to.
Quick question while they're
delete,
typing, it kind of got brought up, so
like that.
you had sent out
And then to
some
be
edits.
contained in the annual town
Tony had sent out
report.
his version
And then you could,
legally via email.
after the
What
word
do we
report,
have the ability to
you
respond
don't wanna
back?
start another sentence.
Yeah, and then,
and something like
Nothing
this.
that
Yeah.
discusses it.
Okay.
As far as like
I agree or I
You get, like,
disagree.
Complete
Clerical
feedback.
stuff, hey, there's a mistake here,
Yeah.
there's a this or that.
But pretty much just.
Agenda
unedited.
stuff you can send out and say, I think we should wait, or
Delete.
I can't make
'Cause I
this,
don't
or
wanna say
things
unedited, that
like
makes
that.
it sound like
But as far
someone's
as
always gonna mess with it.
stating, no, I don't think we should do that, or
No.
that you're not supposed to do that. I'm not saying that it doesn't get done by probably almost every entity out there,
Yeah.
but.
You're not supposed to.
Which is why neither of us responded back to
Right.
anything,
Right.
because obviously we don't wanna do anything that we're not supposed to. Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure.
Most times I don't respond yes or no. I will respond with some other information.
No, I said just send it out so you have it to look at in case you wanna think about it, and so you don't see it the first time, because it is an
Yeah.
agenda item, so here's the background information for the agenda.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't come in here cold turkey and not see something for the first time and necessarily make a good judgment.
Yep.
If you have the time to get it, look at it, digest it, doing some investigation on your own, and you come in, you are a much better prepared person to make a judgment, yes or no,
Yep.
or inputs to it.
There's gonna need
That's,
to be a date there.
that's just me,
Well,
how I feel.
The other thing that we might wanna consider, and this is just a total tangential thing, is what we're doing right now and what Tony's doing with most of us having laptops actually
No, I
would be
wouldn't
easier
put
to
anything like
accomplish
that.
if right now I could
Just
be
say a
seeing what
complete
Tony's
version.
doing on my screen.
I
And
see
that
what
way,
you're
if
saying,
somebody
I
wants
see
to
what you're
email
saying.
it,
Google
it could be
Or
some lady
some,
who wants a
and there's
different
ways to
version
do
just
that,
because.
so.
Yeah,
And
I
how
see
it's
what you're
done.
We might wanna think about ways that we can. It's
It's
very, very easy, but you could literally see him typing on the screen, so that you could be
It
reading
is
right now what he's typing without him
officially
having.
released.
Committee.
It's
And
getting
that-
way too complicated for me.
No, it's not, it's really, really not.
You're gonna like this, Lee. When we had a coordinator,
I don't know
Official
when they do that.
release.
being Jeff Ritter,
If it's like at the end
He
of the fiscal
talked
year,
about
so that'll
having
come out mid-July, or
tablets.
does
Yeah,
that?
so what did
that we
you,
would,
I had
every
something I
board
wanted to
would
put in
have,
and I
you
got
wouldn't have any paper,
sidetracked.
number
No, no,
one.
no.
Something
It was
similar
about,
to what
no, it was
we're
about the
doing.
date,
Jeff would do that.
availability date.
Jeff, section 7, when is that annual report done? Do we do that at the end of the fiscal year? Do we do it after
No,
town meeting? When
Oh.
is that done?
No, it has to be done, this year it's,
January,
February,
February 27th?
27th, I believe.
So it's an
No.
annual report at the end of the calendar year?
Well, you know what, we don't have to
No,
put
no,
a
it's
date.
a report, the annual report of the fiscal year. So this year, usually when you go in to vote,
Oh, it's there.
it's that report that you
Okay.
get, and that goes from,
Just looking for some sort of
This would be
timeline
18,
for
this
section
would be
7.
FY 18 of June of 17
June
to
30th,
July of
June
18.
30th of 2018. So the fiscal year, the annual report that you're gonna see when you go to vote or go to annual town meeting, everything that we did from July 1, 2017 until June 30th, 2018. So
No.
for the past 6 months, we've been working on 19, and I'm trying to
Won't
keep,
see it for
I'm trying to
another-
keep
yeah.
good
They won't
notes
see
on
that, right.
stuff, because otherwise. you gotta
So
roll-
the question that we
the
have
Rolodex back a year.
with section 7, when we're talking about a complete version, like an unedited version of this annual report, with the idea that it's going to be edited for formatting and space. So if someone does want to read it in its entirety, what would be a timeline for them to pick that up? Like, it seems really vague after its official release.
It
It's
should be in
vague.
its entirety in the annual town report.
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
However, you guys are both stating examples where that didn't happen. So we're writing in here a way for any interested parties to receive whatever we put out originally. Maybe it's gonna look exactly the same. If anybody wants to check it, they wanna look at it, they don't wanna watch hours of video.
Yep.
You know what?
When can we tell them they can get that? You
So-
know, this many days.
Yeah.
It should at least be by annual town report, cause that's when we would have.
Well,
that
we-
Oh,
document.
okay, so that's
But
its
you know
own
what?
thing, the annual
So-
town report?
So.
Amy, we also have the opportunity, at the annual town meeting, there's usually an article of reports from committees. You can state at there is,
not really a
we have
bylaw,
put a
it's a-
report out, it's not there in its entirety, it's available on the website.
The Secretary
I mean, that was my thought after this all
Shall
happened,
furnish.
but it was too late by then.
Complete version.
So we can just put it on the
Upon
website
request.
Right,
and
exactly.
announce
Yeah.
then. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, It's important.
Man,
This is history of this,
I got way too much
this
stuff to
committee, what they
do.
did.
Not enough
I mean, we
time on my hands.
spent-
Let's
yeah.
see.
We spent a couple of days,
Well, I think,
a couple of meetings going
that
through all
together.
those,
Yeah, I bet.
Let's see.
with no help
It's
at
like
all,
this
because
weekend, I
we didn't
won't
have
get
some of those
nothing
people.
done this
Secretary
We
week.
of the
had nobody
Advisory
coming to the
Committee.
meeting to take and tell us about this. We had to, we rejected some, and then we asked for information,
Shall
and it was like, okay, we'll
provide
resubmit it, and we resubmit it with the information that
Okay.
you're asking for.
copy.
Well, you
Amy,
should have
to
had that.
answer your
when you-
question,
When you first
Right,
requested
it
it.
Okay.
says on our piece of paperwork that they're supposed to be there
February,
with
okay.
the necessary
We have
backup
a-
document.
A meeting
didn't.
on the 21st of February. Now, if I really put my fingers, if I just sit down and do it, I can bring it, I can send it electronically to the members. On the 21st, we can talk about it, and if everybody says, yeah, that's a good report, Jeff, no problem, just send that in, everybody's fine with it. I will submit that to the selectmen, and then that could go on like the Facebook page or any place, once
Okay.
we say it.
So I didn't realize that, like, the release of the annual town report is established by the Board of Selectmen, right? Like the date for that, because it's gotta move slightly every year, even if it's
There's,
just by a day or
yeah,
two?
well, there's some things, Mass General Law that states when certain entities are supposed to report the information to be in that report.
Okay, so we can just say, upon release of the annual town report.
An unedited version is
Well, like
available.
what we,
Right.
what
It
we
obviously
vote,
has to be done by
Right.
then.
Because it'll be
but-
done by then anyway, so if that date is determined by a Mass General Law or something else, then that's fine. I just didn't wanna leave it sort of obscure, like, when is this
yeah,
gonna be done?
This date is, the selectmen wanna have it so they can organize it, go
Yeah, yeah,
over
of
it,
course.
get it to the printer and get
Right.
it printed in and get it thing. But as far as, like, there are certain things, like light department is supposed to, general manager is supposed to have a report, to the town by a certain date. There's Mass General Law that, it's
Right,
in
right,
that chapter 164.
But
it's
we'll have
section-
our version done by time of the annual town report, and if people are interested in that, they're gonna know when that is.
Right.
They're gonna be looking for that, and if they look at the annual town report and we've got 3 sentences, they're gonna know there's more. They can come to us
So-
and get
So this year,
more.
town meeting will be before the election. The town report should be available at town meeting. It will be before town meeting.
Okay,
I would hope so.
Okay, so this is what section 7, after all this talking, what I'm to now. It shall be the duty of the advisory committee to make an annual report of its, actually, a semicolon goes in there. Membership with date appointed and term, expenditures, town emergency reserves, and end-of-year transfers. And, let me take that. No, just make it proper English. Okay, so, I'm sorry, town emergency reserves, end-of-year transfers, and any other pertinent business to be contained in the annual town report. Shall make, that's fine. The secretary of the advisory committee shall provide a copy of the complete report, copy of the complete version upon request, but no earlier than the release of the annual town report. And the reason we put complete version was in case it's edited for whatever reason, people will know that there's still, and we'll put it on our website and stuff, that we, put more information out there.
So,
You're saying that they wouldn't get a complete version before the annual town report?
No, because we can't, I don't think by law we could release our report. The town report has to come out, then we can release our
It
report.
doesn't say that as far as that goes. I mean, annual reporting, if you read the bylaws of most communities, it says we have to make an annual report.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it has to be in the annual.
No, what we're saying is that the secretary will make the complete report available to people after the town report is, it's not saying we can't put it up on the website, but we're not gonna provide copies to people that request it until after the town report is out.
If we discuss it at a meeting and vote on it, and somebody's sitting here and they say they
Right.
want a copy of that, it's part of the minutes.
That's right,
They get it.
for
So-
sure.
You
So
can't-
as soon
we-
as,
It's not like we can't release it,
Right.
because if we vote on it at this meeting,
so
anybody who
if we,
wants
Okay, well, I can take that out.
if he, if Jeff writes it up and we actually see it at the meeting and we read it and we vote on it, that he should submit it, that becomes a public document, and at that point, you don't have to wait till the annual town meeting. It's available,
Okay.
somebody asks us for
Okay.
it, it's available.
Okay, so the assumption is we vote, the Secretary of the Advisory Committee shall provide a copy of the complete version upon request. Complete report.
I feel bad, I keep moving in front of you.
can hear. Hello.
it's just like the minutes, if they want a copy of the minutes in draft.
Okay.
We're supposed to be able to provide them to them at the end of the meeting,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
or it's as soon as you can get to them, and they can be draft, I mean, they don't have to be accepted.
All right,
Does
so,
it stipulate how those need to be provided? So, you know,
No, they just.
5,000 people walk in, they want a copy. Okay, well, that's doable. Electronically, that's much easier than
Yes.
printing up 5,000 copies.
Right.
It's certainly much cheaper.
Well, you can charge them 5 cents a copy.
Well, do we actually have that?
Yes.
So-
Have the ability.
can I put in there, the shall provide an electronic copy of the complete report upon request?
I just want to, so obviously that affects me right now, but I do want to protect whoever's the secretary at whatever point in time for unreasonable requests of that. So again, I'm not saying that we should not provide
There is a record
the-
request.
the documentation. I think we
Right.
absolutely should.
There is a
but-
record request, actually, law that says that if somebody requests it, that you do it and you
Because
can
this
end
is
up
really
charging for whatever time
How they get it
and
is
whatever
really not
resources
a
that you use it.
bylaw.
Is that a town law or a state law?
That's a state law.
State law, okay.
So, but I'm not
Okay,
sure
as long-
how
as long
they
as
get
it's
it
covered,
would be a
just make
It goes
bylaw.
to the town's general fund,
Okay.
that's
All
where.
right.
I'm not sure that, how they get it would be part of the bylaw.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Cause if somebody in the future wants to handwrite it in calligraphy on deer parchment, that's their problem.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, who knows?
Right.
Sure.
But
Okay,
you know what
so-
I mean? Like, you just don't know.
Okay, it sounds like we're covered, so I just wanted to ask the
All right,
question. Okay.
so I make a motion to accept section 7 as discussed. Again, this document's gonna go out and then we're gonna re-vote on the entire document, so. And,
I second that motion.
Alrighty then.
and again, when I send this out, you'll see all the changes.
Anything further from anybody?
No.
I think we banged that one pretty good. On the motion, Tony,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will.
Yes. And I'd like to make a motion that,
Hey, don't be cutting in my line.
I'd like to take
Yes.
and make a motion that we end up having multiple readings of of this document, before we finalize it. Just that we would end up, in other
well,
words,
I
we
mean,
would-
I think that we have to get this in fairly soon, so,
Right,
We
but
have
I'm
to
saying.
stay on this, yeah.
yes.
But I'm saying we should have another review of the document since we've had the changes.
Yeah, it's gonna go out electronically. So
It'll be
you'll
on
see it.
It'll be on the
You wanna see
next
it in an
meeting.
hour, Tony can probably send it when he gets home.
I'm gonna send it to you in like 5 minutes, but, well, okay, so Jeff had a section 8 in his, I did not. It had to do with appointing members to subcommittees or representative committees. I think we already have that covered.
Where is it?
Subcommittees could be within our board versus,
Yeah, but I think we have that covered in,
well,
Let's see where-
subcommittees.
ad hoc committees, we have that all in there. I mean, I
But
don't,
that's for the entire town. You can end up on this particular committee, you can create a subcommittee of 2 or 3 people to go off and do something and come back to you. And that, I don't believe that that's covered, would be covered under the bylaw.
Well,
do we need a bylaw for
it says members of the committee may serve upon temporary ad hoc committees convened for a single purpose. It gives such as, but,
That's like if there was a search committee for a town administrator.
well, I understand that, but, I mean, how often do you have?
Wouldn't it also apply for any committee we wanted to make?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Would it really?
yeah, it's an ad
I'm
hoc
not sure.
committee. Ad hoc is ad hoc, it's just random. I mean, how often do you have a subcommittee within the advisory
Because,
committee?
because, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that in looking at procedures of, from other communities, which I have gathered some information, they have actually got in the procedures about setting up a subcommittee and what entails as to what the responsibilities, how long, and everything.
Okay, so we need that.
I mean, the bylaws are not gonna cover, that's our procedure on how we operate ourselves and not necessarily with other communities, with other committees.
I don't know,
mean,
do we have to
This is our
have a?
committee working inside in our
Right, so do
procedure.
we have to have a bylaw saying that we're allowed to work within our own committee?
No, I didn't say a bylaw, I said a procedure. Other
Oh, okay,
communities
then-
have
then-
procedures.
Then we're only talking about bylaws right now.
Yep.
All right, so then I guess we're done with
That was
bylaws.
actually I found that section on the bylaws of several other towns. So, I mean, it's not just something I just said, you know, that sounds like a cool thing. There are other towns that have that same bylaw, verbiage.
Well,
Do
I,
we need a section 8? Can we add that to section 1?
Where is it? February
I think it should be standalone,
27th.
because it has nothing to do with committees of the community.
so, okay, so we can appoint members to subcommittees or as representative to committees to attend meetings of various entities of the town and school district. We can't appoint somebody to go to the school committee meeting.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. We
It's
can
called
vote to
liaisons.
represent- We
Huh?
can say, hey, you're gonna, like, represent us
Okay.
to go to a school committee meeting. You would go to the selectmen's meeting and come back, so everybody doesn't have to go, if there's like 3 meetings, a school committee meeting and cause it's
Right,
on a
okay,
Wednesday
yeah, I
now.
get that, okay.
Okay, so we can elect amongst ourselves, appoint a representative. We're
Right.
gonna go to the school committee and
At one
report
time,
back
we
and
had
speak
people-
I
for
think
the,
that's more in the policies and procedures versus
and
bylaws.
speak for the committee.
Yeah,
Like I said, I got that from the bylaws
Right.
of other towns.
Yep.
So it's not, it's done.
It's not unusual for finance or advisory committees to have liaisons, and they call them liaisons, to go to other committees and other boards, especially around budget time, to hear their discussions around budgets, to bring back information. I mean, that doesn't mean you're gonna bring everything back.
Because you just can't all be at everything.
We can't all be at something. And at one particular time, early on, we did have people that were liaisons to different things. I mean, we had people that were going to the sewerage committee, the sewerage commissioners, we had people going to, assessors, I mean, for different stuff.
Sure.
I mean, that's not unusual.
Right,
So-
yeah, to Tony's point, this does strike me as being more of an internal committee policy procedure. But that said, Tony, I don't see anything that negatively impacts us by including it.
no, I just put it in.
But yeah, so I understand exactly what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I'm fine with that.
So this looks like the 27th of February, they wanna present the budget and the warrant, and that's when you'll get your books and stuff, so,
Good, I'll be here.
yeah, we can do that at our next meeting and then submit it. And there's no guarantee the selectmen will put it on, I mean, they don't have to put this on the warrant, cause this committee has submitted things to be on the warrant, and they voted not to put them on.
Right. There was a number of times we did, and it wasn't put on. The
and
only
then
way you
that
can
leaves-
actually
then
get
that
it
leaves
on-
two options.
The only
Well-
way that they are forced to put it on is if it's a citizen petition. If they get something from a board or commissioners or anybody, they cannot put it, it's up to them whether they wanna put it on or not. They put some on, for some committees or some commissioners, but, and looking at the ones that we submitted, they did not end up doing that. It had to actually be brought up by a citizen petition.
So we were at the meeting on Tuesday, and the town administrator explained that there would likely be one or two more meetings like that, specifically with regard to the codification, and I think therefore the warrant. So this section that we just worked on, I think should definitely appear at one of those other preliminary sessions.
I agree.
And I think us asking questions of town council will spark that. And I think that this committee should request that it specifically be brought up at one of those earlier sessions, which also perhaps stresses to the Board of Selectmen that we are taking this seriously, despite the fact that they feel we've delayed, which I don't think we have, but that's potato, potato. So, and perhaps will encourage them to include it on the warrant as a separate article, because that was talked about, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit with the codification meeting, but presented as a separate article, simply because I would really like the town to see the time that we've put into this and the thought that we, as a committee, have put into this. So
The
I
only
think
thing I can
going
say is
forward-
that we had, today, as far as I'm concerned, was it was good that they can sit here and discuss stuff. That's how government should work, is having something brought up and hear all the points and then make decisions on our own. I mean, I like the back and forth of hearing what I have to say, somebody else says something from a different perspective. And I mean, you've seen me change my mind on some stuff after I presented something. And I think, hopefully I've done that with some folks and saying, okay, take a look at it from this angle and see what you think. I mean, this is my thoughts. I think that's how government should work, period.
Stand up and stretch for a minute.
What are you saying? Have we been sitting for a while?
Yeah, no, I'm just.
We're
gonna
not done
stretch.
yet.
I'm not, I'm just standing, I'm just standing.
It's all right, I had a cramp here just a second ago.
All right,
I'm not leaving, don't worry.
Is it the 9:30 stretch? Should we all get up?
Yeah.
okay, so that's what happened at the codification meeting. I'll have a tentative pre-town meeting date of May 2nd.
Do you want that as a motion, Mr. Chairman, is to have this brought before the next codification meeting, once we vote on this?
Oh, sorry. You okay?
We could do that at the February 7th meeting, or we can do
Town
it
meeting
tonight.
is gonna be May 2nd as tentative.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that then.
Mr. Chairman, I would, after we set the pre-town meeting, I'd like to make a motion to table the rest of the stuff to the next meeting on the agenda.
That's it.
Should be
Okay,
quick.
for, the agenda items,
Oh,
Next meeting,
unless
that's it, we're
we're done, okay. I'll retract my motion.
It's gonna be quick the next,
right. So you covered what was in, what happened at that meeting on Tuesday.
Sure, yeah.
A tentative town meeting date of May 2nd, does that sound good
Yep.
so far? Okay. And minutes for the next meeting, advisory bylaw, and the expenditure report, agenda items for the next meeting. If anybody has anything else, thinks of anything else, just email it to me.
just review this vote on this last,
The bylaw, that's.
bylaws,
that's,
okay.
Advisory bylaw, that's,
Okay.
it's on there,
I just sent it out to everybody.
okay.
You're
And
so
our-
fast.
No, no.
Our next meeting date is February 7th. I will cancel the 31st because they're gonna,
So I was gonna mention that. On January 31st, there'll be a public hearing to discuss the request for proposals for Baldwinville Elementary. He'll be here at 6 o'clock.
and I will
Are we gonna have a
cancel.
workshop then, or?
You don't have to have it in here, but this,
No.
Right,
We could do it in room 1.
yep. Are you still gonna have a workshop on the 31st? That was my question.
Tony won't be able to be there, but,
I will not be here the 7th.
okay. Tentatively, we'll schedule one,
Yeah?
as we'll see.
It's like you don't.
So, like I said, any additional agenda items that you wish to have was that, a possible workshop on the 31st in the accountant's, that table, room 1.
Right.
Which would be at 6:30. All right. Oh, maybe a capital planning update for the 7th. All right. Anybody have anything they wanna comment on? What, other than the codification thing? Anybody see anything cool out there, meet Santa Claus? Myself, I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time in a truck this
Well, the only comment
this
like,
holiday.
I don't think Tony heard it, he was out, is I thought the discussion that we had today was very helpful. The fact that we could end up talking about something back and forth and hearing what other folks had to say and come to a consensus and vote after getting some good information back and
Yep,
forth.
I agree.
Yep.
Absolutely agree.
All right, that's nothing else.
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody wish to stay?
No.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got more soda.